Another year, another rewind. Welcome back, everybody, to our third Star Wars Trilogy retrospective thing. Happy May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day, hopefully.
Yeah, May the 4th be with you. Thanks for coming back and watching us talk about another Star Wars trilogy.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
This year we're doing the sequel trilogy. It should be a really good time.
Yeah, last year we did the prequels. That was a lot of fun. And the year before that we talked about the original trilogy. These are just fun conversations for us because we're just such Star Wars nerds. So this is just always like a good time to just sit around, talk about Star Wars, and we hope that you enjoy the conversation as well.
Yeah, I actually hope you hate it. If you're a little rusty on how things all started. I mean, obviously, George Lucas made the prequel trilogy. At the time, especially, they were not received all that well by critics and fans alike. In recent years, those movies have gotten a lot of love and sort of second wind, rehabilitation. Yes. Prequel revisionism is very huge. Revenge of the Sith's 20th anniversary re-release is actually happening this weekend as we're recording it, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it the backlash to those movies was really strong and pretty nasty, and I think it left a bad taste in George Lucas's mouth, which caused him to not really want to make Star Wars anymore or make movies all that much in general. So in 2012 he sold the franchise to Disney for $4.1 billion. They made their money back from this trilogy alone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, the first two movies, all of them made over $1 billion. The Force Awakens especially, I think almost cracked $2 billion. Oh, and then The Last Jedi was at I think 1.4, and Rise of Skywalker just cracked $1 billion, which a lot of people point to is well, see, there was huge fall off. The movies were not financially successful. People hated them all, and that's why they saw less and less returns. It's no, that's just kind of what happens in a lot of franchises, which is weird. The exception would be maybe the Avengers and Harry Potter. Yeah, and in 2012, Disney buys Lucasfilm, and then J.J. Abrams was brought on to direct the first movie, The Force Awakens. Looking back at the time, that makes total sense, right? Because he had just rebooted Star Trek in 2009 in a pretty successful way. And then they brought back Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Episode 5 and Episode 6, Empire and Return of the Jedi, to write the script. So it was okay, that makes sense. You can kind of see the direction where they're trying to go. They're very much trying to recapture the feeling of the original movies. So we'll start the discussion with overall thoughts on the trilogy, and then we'll go film by film like we always do. Niles, what are some of your overall thoughts on the sequel trilogy?
So I think in general, this trilogy, the sequels, they do have some good strengths and some really good, strong moments. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's always consistent throughout. I think there's an obvious problem child, which is Episode 9, which we will get to. There's some issues there, but I think I'm generally positive on Episode 7, Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi, Episode 8. I do like those movies overall. I think that there's some really good character growth and character development, Rey's whole Jedi path, I think, is pretty strong throughout those three movies, and Finn's self-discovery journey in the first two movies. Pretty great. Poe rising to leadership throughout, and then just Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. He's just got a lot going on, emotionally, identity-wise, family-wise. You can tell that he's going through the ringer in these movies, and he's just being pulled in separate directions. And so he's a really good standout, I would say. And then there's lots of good comedy throughout here too, which I think is pretty crucial for Star Wars.
Star Wars is a little bit silly sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't take itself always super seriously, but it does. But there's really good stuff in here with Han in Episode 7, and Finn's great comedic relief in that. They got good shtick. There's lots of good funny island silliness in the Episode 8, which I really love. We'll get to that. And then Babu Freak. I love him.
He's very cute.
He's so funny. He's so cute. I think there's some good action sequences too. The Star Killer base, the bombing run at the start of Episode 8. Great. lightsaber duels. Like, there's lots of good redeeming qualities, I think. I just think that in general, similar to the prequels, the sequels have a lot of problems. And I think a lot of the common criticisms for this, not all of them, some of them for this trilogy are valid. Like, some of the fight choreography sometimes is not great.
I mean, like, there are a couple spots. The one people point to is in the fucking Last Jedi throne room, where, like, the guard, like, I guess Daisy Ridley missed her cue or something, and the guy adjusts and doesn't hit Rey. The thing for me with that, and we'll come back to this when we talk about The Last Jedi, is, like, you didn't notice that in the movie theater. I know you didn't. And if you say you did, you're a fucking liar. You noticed it when you were in your Adobe Premiere suite trying to shit on the movie, going frame by frame by frame, and you realized, ha ha ha, he missed his mark, ha ha, I beat the movie. And it's like, yeah, you know, they fucked up a little bit, but they made the decision to go for this wide shot and to get all the action and all the characters' reactions in a cool looking shot. And I would rather filmmakers engage with that type of visual storytelling, you know, sometimes at the expense of a missed mark, rather than chop fight scenes to shit and make sure, like, ideally you do both. But, you know, mistakes happen in everything, and it's not a big deal. Like,
for sure.
Movies are called movies because they're moving pictures. You watch them in motion. If you don't notice the thing in motion, then it doesn't really matter that much.
It's just an illusion to trick you.
Exactly. But yeah, but I think this will be a really interesting conversation about this trilogy, because I essentially have two separate sets of feelings. Like, I love episodes 7 and 8, and I really, really don't like 9. It's like that. Have you seen that Markiplier meme?
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this. You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
It's kind of like that for this trilogy for me. And on a rewatch, I don't dislike 9 as much as I did in theaters, but at the time, it was probably the most disappointed I've ever been in a movie.
Very same. I'm a little bit more positive this time. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that because it has a lot of issues and a lot of things that we need to talk about. Mm-hmm. 6 years after the movie was released, we need to talk about it right
We have to talk about it now.
But yeah, like I agree. Episode 7 and 8 really do like overall, but yeah, that last one is kind of a mess. And I think overall the reason for the sequels being this way is just a lack of planning and a lack of a clear vision. Mm-hmm. Like I don't claim to know all the details, and I'm not as chronically online as you are. So you probably know a little bit more about this.
Fucking rude.
Sorry. But like, I just think that they started strong, and then they just always at the end of each movie they're like, oh, we don't know what to do next. We don't know where we're going from here. We don't have a cohesive plan. And I'm not saying that they needed a cohesive plan overall, but like there's like just this lack of vision. Like each successive film, I think the creators are just like struggling, like grasping at straws to be like, what do we do to tie this together? Independently, these films are all right, I think, but it's just kind of disjointed and clunky when you kind of put them all together, I think. Again, I know that George didn't plan out the original trilogy all the way when he started making the first movie.
Right.
And same with Phantom Menace. Like, he wasn't thinking, like, this is the vision I have for the prequels, but, like, or he didn't have everything mapped out.
I think the prequels were more mapped out than the originals were. But there's still little things, and we talked about it in those videos. Like, in the original trilogy, Darth Vader was not Anakin Skywalker in the original movie. Yes. He just wasn't. Also, Luke and Leia were not brother and sister in original trilogy and Empire Strikes Back. If they were, come on, man. And then in the prequels, I think the one we talked about is like Padme is the queen in the first movie, and then like I think the theory I came up with last year was that like George realized that the Queen of Naboo wouldn't really be involved in the plot events of the rest of the trilogy, so like now the Queen is an elected position and she was nominated by the new queen to be the senator. So she can be involved in the plot. It's stuff like that. I understand that criticism of this trilogy, and it is probably the most widely accepted one, that it's like, oh, they're pretty good, but it would have been better if they had a plan, like if they'd but I push back on it a little bit, because I think that criticism is 100% like just a retrospective criticism based on episode 9 not sticking the landing. Because I think, like, if we'd gotten a satisfying conclusion in episode 9 and everything had wrapped up in a nice way, I don't think anyone would have cared that it wasn't planned out. Like the original trilogy, it wasn't really all that planned out, but the thing is, episode 6 doesn't just walk back everything introduced in episode 5. Like, imagine a scenario where in Return of the Jedi, there's a twist where it's actually like, Vader isn't actually your dad. He was lying to you. That's the problem here, because you have two different approaches you can do with a big franchise like this. Like, obviously, the plan it all out ahead of time, map things, and stay consistent is one route. And that's great. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But they chose to initially have a different filmmaker do each film and bring their own perspective and just kind of move on from where the last one left off.
Yes.
After, I believe, Colin Trevorrow's Book of Henry bombed and was like critically panned, he got fired and wasn't doing episode 9 anymore.
Okay.
I believe that's the main reason why. There may be other stuff behind the scenes. I don't know. That's when they brought JJ back. And I think that's where a lot of the problems come in, because like J.J. Abrams went on record saying he like really loved The Last Jedi and that he was like jealous he didn't get to direct the script. So I think the initial thought, even from me, was that he just didn't like the direction Ryan was going with a lot of the stuff, which maybe he didn't. Maybe he was just like doing good PR at the time. But I think the reality is more he's trying to be bold in his own way and trying to like work with what was like left on the table by Ryan and just fucked it up. I think he misunderstood why a lot of the things that work in The Last Jedi work.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think like also just in general, J.J. Abrams is really good at opening stories. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this before. He's really good at opening stories. He's not really good at closing them.
Well, he doesn't do it very much.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's good at starting something, but like wrapping it up, making it a satisfying ending. I don't think that's his strong suit.
Yeah, and I think it's just not what he likes to do. I think he likes posing questions.
Yeah.
I think he likes setting up a mystery. I don't think he's very interested in the mystery's answers in general, which is fine.
Yeah.
I remember leading up to episode 9, Patrick H. Willems made a video trying to predict what episode 9 would be based on the only like ending J.J. Abrams had written before, which was the TV show Felicity. And it was a pretty funny video. I don't remember how it all panned out, but I think one of the reasons I'm okay with the lack of roadmap for this trilogy, even though it didn't work out, is that I just think like The Last Jedi is the trilogy's best film, in my opinion. And that movie is not something that would appear on like a Disney-approved franchise roadmap.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean there. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like overall on the trilogy too, my thoughts, like I think the new cast of characters is great.
Yes.
Everyone is shortchanged in episode 9, in my opinion. But the first 2 films are very, very strong. I think sometimes they play things a little too safe and familiar to the original trilogy. Yes. There was obviously a desire to go back to the look and feel of the original trilogy, which is fine, but they didn't have to go quite so hard in a lot of ways. And I remember too just how excited I was leading up to this. And I actually had to be won over though, because to me, I got what I needed out of Star Wars already. I wasn't like I have these little books here now, these Legends books. I guess the original sequel trilogy. It's the Thrawn books. I've read the first one of them now. It's okay. I'll keep reading them, but like to me, I wasn't someone who engaged with all of this. Like I watched the original trilogy, and then as a kid I watched the prequels, and I was like, oh, the story's done, and I fucking moved on. So when the idea of a sequel trilogy came to be, I was like, okay, like just do more movies, but don't include Luke, Han, and Leia. Like, their story is done. Do something else. And then they announced that obviously they're all fucking coming back. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Because I just thought it felt cash grabby to me at the time. And then it wasn't until the final trailer for The Force Awakens. It's the one where it's like Han is like talking to Rey and Finn in the ship, and he says to like, it's true, all of it. And then the music kicks in, and I'm like, okay, fuck that, you got me. I'm here.
I guess I'll watch it. I'm sold. But I mean, you're right. Yeah, like when we grew up with with the prequels, like, so I feel like I have nostalgia for them, and just like you were saying, yeah, like I've watched all of those movies, those first 6 films, to death. I've seen them all probably like 500 times at this point, like way too much. Yeah, like I watched those movies way too much growing up as a kid. But yeah, like you said, after Revenge of the Sith came out, I was like, okay, I'm satisfied. I don't really need anything else. And then, yeah, 10 years went by, and they're like, we got to do another one. Because now we got the property, let's make some movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Test the waters, see what direction we can take this in, and how much money we can actually make out of it. And they're making a lot of money out of it now. So good for them, I guess.
Yeah, but it was, and it was also like these were coming back at a time where like online geek culture was really full steam ahead. You know, like you had all those like commentary YouTube channels who focused around like the Marvel stuff and Game of Thrones, and then Star Wars was out of the mix. So it's like the culture, we were at the right age and in the right place of online culture for like the hype machine to just really take off. But I do remember, I can't remember if I mentioned it in our other rewinds, but we were fortunate enough in our college years to do study abroad programs. This movie came out December of 2015, which was like the end of that program. And I stayed up because tickets for Force Awakens went on sale with Monday Night Football that year. And I was in London. So I had to stay up really late to get my tickets. And then it was like 2 a.m. I got like 9 tickets so I could go with all my friends there. Yeah. And then they announced like after that, it's like, ooh, the next trailer is gonna drop in like 2 more hours. I'm like, fuck it. I stayed up till 4 a.m. in the morning, watched the trailer, and I woke up the next day, and one of my friends, she was a Northern Irish girl, she'd been shitting on Star Wars the whole semester, and I'm like, what the fuck is your problem, man? What? Leave it alone. And then that morning, she's like, I hate Star Wars. I ain't even ever seen it. And I'm like, what? And I look at her, I say, you and I are going to sit down and we're going to watch the original movie together. And if you don't like it, that's fine. We'll stop. But you're going to like it, and then you're going to watch all of them with me, and then you're going to come with us to see the new one at midnight. And I'm remembering, I think I talked about it in the original Trilogy rewind, but we watched the first movie in complete silence. And it was the first time I saw like how kind of slow to start that movie is. And I was like, oh fuck, she's going to hate it. And then at the end, she looks at me, she's like, that was amazing. Yes. Yeah.
Vindicated.
And she watched all of them and came with us to see the new one at midnight, which was really fun. Yeah. But any other overall thoughts before we dive into the meat of this?
No, I think we can jump on into The Force Awakens, start off there, and I'm sure more will come.
I've got a good eye for talent, and Daisy was just doing like a little rap one day, and I just said, you know what, I can make you a big star. So we decided to collaborate on a song together. 1, 2, 3, go.
We all up in the desert and we're filming Star Wars. Because of our diet, we can't eat no Mars bars. Because of the explosion, they be crawling on our floors. Because of all the heat, we can really make some s'mores in the desert. What? In the desert. What? What? In the desert. What? In the desert. What? What?
Go to light speed.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk about The Force Awakens.
Yeah, but it is crazy to think that this movie came out 10 years ago. Like, it makes me feel old.
It's now been as long from now to when this movie came out as it was between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens coming out.
Yeah, that's insane. But I mean, I think Episode 7, The Force Awakens, it's honestly such a good start for the sequels, because I think that this movie is great in so many ways. Like, even though the plot is very, 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 very similar to Episode 4, the original movie, A New Hope. It's a strong reboot, in my opinion, and it provides a lot of promise for the sequel. In 2015, when this movie came out, it was just like, okay, I need the next one already. Like, I was just so hyped for it. Like, when I watched this in theaters, yeah, it's because you got so many great characters: Finn, Rey, Kylo Ren, Ben, and then just, yeah, all these intriguing setups, like Rey's parentage. Who is she? Where did she come from? How is she gonna train to become a Jedi? Kylo's lost on Starkiller Base, like, and then Finn's arc, like, where is it gonna go from here now that he's defected and he's part of the Resistance? It's like, okay, there's lots of good things brewing here in this movie. You got a good setup.
Yes, and I think it's important to remember too the vibe around Star Wars at the time, right? Like, the prequels have gotten a lot of love in the years since then, in part because of like our generation growing up and becoming young adults and like entering the discourse more. But like, I think the similarity in plot to A New Hope is very much intentional. It seems like the motivation here was to do a back to basics movie and set a foundation for like future movies, and I think it fully succeeds at that. Like, a lot of people say like, well, yeah, I don't like it as much now because it's just like it doesn't take any big risks, which I don't agree with, but we'll talk about that later. But it like, or it just like plays things too safe, or it's just A New Hope again, and you know, there's some stuff like that, and I have a different thought on that in a second. But like, in the video I made on this movie several years ago now, I refer to this movie not as a remake of A New Hope, but a remix.
I like that.
Because it has like many of the same ingredients and like plot beats and locations as the original film, but used in a different way. Like, the example I used in my video was Maz Kanata's castle, the cantina. Like, of course, there's a cantina scene, but think about back to the original movie. Like, what is the cantina scene for? It's like, it's our introduction to Han Solo. It's where the adventure really kicks off. Like, they go off Tatooine for the first time. It's our first steps into the larger world. The cantina scene in this movie isn't that at all. It's like kind of the low point in the narrative. It's where Finn kind of has a like crisis and decides to go off on his own. Rey has a big like vision, like kind of crossing the sort of a threshold moment, and she runs away too. You're kind of getting a little bit more window into like what has happened with Han in the years in between the trilogies. It's like, it's serving a very different function in the narrative. The other thing too is just like, the characters are different. It's a lot of the same scenarios, but Finn and Rey experiencing these types of scenarios is inherently different than Luke, Ben Kenobi, and Han Solo experiencing them. You know, it's just, it uses the familiar to do something new. And because like the prequels were so different in style and tone from the originals in a lot of ways, and people didn't respond to that well back then, and that feeling was still the prevalent one going into the start of the sequel trilogy, so it makes sense that they would start like, let's do something familiar, let's give them something that they really like, and then we'll go from there. And I think one thing this movie does so well is the character introductions. Like, Rey's character intro is literally perfect.
Yeah, it's basically flawless.
I think it's like 6 minutes long, and maybe has 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, but you learn everything you need to know about her at this point. It's like, she's a scavenger, she lives on her own on this desert planet, and then you see that when she's cleaning the thing, she looks over to the old woman sitting across from her, and then up to the spaceship flying away. So it's like, you see her concern that like, I'm going to become this, and you wonder why she's alone here, and it's just like kind of a sad life. And then you get the fun, I'll talk about it more in the Last Jedi discussion because I have a note about it there, in how she reacts to Luke, but she lives in an AT-AT and just wears like a little X-Wing pilot helmet just for like fun while she's eating. It's very cute.
It's so cute, and like, I love that element too, because it makes it feel like the war and the Jedi and everything like have become legends at this point. Like, no one who's living on Jakku at that point as like or there's definitely people who have that living memory of like, oh yeah, I remember the battle in space and when all the cruisers crashed down into Earth, who the Jedi were and these heroes, like they're just kind of, they have become mythos.
Right, and it adds this sense of like real world legacy too, because this film, it exists in the legacy of what's come before, and then like to have a character grow up hearing the stories about what happened, like that's kind of cool in a lot of ways. But her intro is such fantastic visual storytelling overall. Like, you don't need the dialogue for that, but on the note of visual storytelling, let's explain something that's totally obvious and can be understood by just watching the film. Sure. If you watch movies as they're intended, as a visual medium. Like, if you bother to pay attention to the visual storytelling, you can understand how Rey beats Kylo Ren at the end of the movie. Because I'm so sick of hearing people whine about this, because people are still fucking complaining about it. Point one, in terms of visual storytelling. Chewbacca's crossbow, right? We are shown multiple times throughout the movie what happens to you if you get shot by that.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, you get fucked up. And now it's very funny, right? It's always a good laugh when that happens. And you even have that note about Han being like, "Can I try that?" He's like noticing it. It's like, I wanna shoot it.
Yeah.
So it's like very fun, but there's a reason that we're seeing it.
Yeah.
It's teaching us about how the effect of this weapon. And then at the end of the movie, you see Chewie shoot Kylo Ren with it. And Kylo Ren does not fly 6 feet behind himself. So he's like a pretty tough guy. But he does get shot by this thing that has killed everyone else who's been shot by it right before he fights Rey.
He's bleeding.
And also, he's emotionally distraught because he just killed his father. That will fuck you up, Yeah, and then the point number two, Rey is just a fighter already.
Yes.
And like towards the beginning of the movie, right before, it's the scene where she and Finn meet. She's attacked by a bunch of dudes who want to steal BB-8 for Unkar Plutt. And she's able to fight them off. Now, you might be asking, well, wait a minute, she hasn't had any combat training. This is a Mary Sue. But you would be wrong, because how does she know how to do this? Well, she lives on a planet where this shit happens, where you get jumped. Like, just earlier in the movie, there's that other guy who tries to grab BB-8 while he's rolling through the desert. It's like, this is a scavenger planet where people will fight you for the shit you have. And so the reason she knows how to do this is that she wouldn't still be alive if she didn't. She had to learn. She's lived on this planet for probably like 10, 11 years at this point. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, she just had to learn combat.
Yeah. Self-taught fighter.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what a Mary Sue is, it comes, I believe the term was based on a character in like a Star Trek fan fiction. Interestingly, like the character was named Mary Sue, and she comes on the Enterprise crew, and she's just like really good at everything. All the characters like her, and it's very much like a sort of kind of a type of author insert where it's like you make a new character who's just like the best at everything for no real like explained reason, and gets along with everybody. And like Han gets along with Rey. Luke doesn't really get along with Rey all that much, but I guess they didn't know that when they were making this criticism of The Force Awakens. But it's just it's a very silly critique, and I think it is primarily made because Rey's a woman. Like people didn't really have an issue with Luke being able to hop in an X-wing at the end of the original movie, even though he'd only ever flown his little
his little
speeder thingy. Yeah, it's like doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I feel like, Star Wars fans in general, today especially, and back then when we were talking like 2015 to today, I feel like the fan base has become kind of emboldened in a lot of ways.
The worst parts of the fan base.
The worst parts of the fandom, and like just Star Wars fans in general will just like nitpick things to death. Like, you're right. Like, how did Luke know how to do any of that stuff in the X-Wing? Like, he had no fucking training.
Yeah. but it doesn't matter. Like, it's just
it's fantastical, and at a certain point, you're watching sci-fi adventure.
You're watching fantasy.
You're watching fantasy. You gotta suspend your disbelief for a few things.
So like Rey being able to tap into the Force a little bit at the end of the movie, like people point out that's like, how could she do that? Well, it's like, well, I think people misunderstand the Force in a lot of ways because it's like, oh, you didn't get any training in it, but it's like I can imagine like it's just this thing that exists in nature, and I'm sure there are lots of people in the Star Wars universe who like kind of tap into it without realizing what they're doing. Like they have some sort of connection to it that they don't fully understand, and that's probably what the thing has been with Rey. Like she's probably been using the Force in little ways without realizing it her whole life, and it's also something she's familiar with as a concept because she grew up hearing stories about Luke Skywalker and his adventures. It's like a latent thing within her. The movie is called The Force Awakens. It's about the Force awakening within her.
Something inside me has always been there. But now it's awake. And I'm afraid. I don't know what it is. Or what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine to like have some sort of innate understanding of it and not really know what you're doing, but be able to get an edge on someone in a specific moment.
Well, and like I like to think of the Force as kind of like
it's an energy field that connects all living things.
It's an energy field that connects all living things, but I think it's also kind of like to a certain degree like this guiding force, this conscious thing that's like all of a sudden it's like, no, this person I see the potential in them and they need this or something like that. Like it's not this like, oh, I can lift rocks and stuff. It's like, no, it's like you're saying, it's like it surrounds all beings, it's in everything. It's this kind of invisible thing that comes to life every now and then. Yeah. So like whether or not you know that you can use the Force, like it's there whether you like it or not. And like it's gonna surprise you sometimes. Maybe all of a sudden you realize one day I can use the Force a lot.
or you can't even like directly tap in and like do an action with it, but the Force is like it's a force of nature. It's out there. It's having its effect on everything. Do you want to talk about other character intros?
Yeah, because I think Rey's is amazing. Love that whole sequence. I love the little bread thing too.
Oh yeah, the little practical effect.
That's such a cool practical effect. I cannot believe that's practical. It's so amazing. Finn's crisis of conscience as a stormtrooper is really fascinating too as a character introduction because he's like going into battle and then he sees his friend die and his friend marks him with the blood and it just symbolizes like immediately he's changed. Like he's not a stormtrooper anymore. Like it's just kind of refreshing to see like stormtrooper actually being a human and being like sympathetic, empathetic, and like when he saw his friend die, his entire perspective changed, and that just inspires him to then help Poe get off and just escape the First Order. I think
it's a little clunky because Poe is the one who killed his friend, but
that's true. But it's like he recognizes the evil that they're doing. Yeah, because they're like kill all the villagers, and it's like why? Why do we gotta kill all the villagers? And he's just all of a sudden he wakes up and I think it's just great and it sets him up for a good journey in this movie and in the next one, I would say. Poe's imprisonment by the First Order and escape from the First Order. It's quick, but I think it establishes him as like a resistance hero very quickly, and I'm glad that they kept him in. He just wasn't just killed off in the crash.
Yeah, you know? I'm glad too because he gets a lot of good stuff to do in episode 8, especially.
Yeah, and then I mean Kylo Ren's introduction. I remember watching that in theaters the first time. Just like this guy's badass.
Yeah. Well, the freezing of the blaster bolt was great.
That's so fantastic. Yeah, because it's so intimidating and powerful in that moment, and you're just like, there's so much mystery around this guy. I want to know more. Like, who is he? And as the movie progresses, it becomes clearer and clearer, just like how lost Ben Solo is, how vulnerable he is, and how he's just trying to fit into this mold that his grandfather was, which Vader, and he's just not that guy. But you can kind of see this emotional struggle, this vulnerability in him. And then Han and Chewie just getting reintroduced. I like how they're reintroduced in this movie. I think that's really good.
This movie, the opening crawl, you know, like right then it's like, oh, okay, this is good. It's like very adventure-y. It's like Luke Skywalker has vanished. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Perfect. I'm in. Perfect. It's like it's such a perfect hook, but also like you're talking about the sequence where Poe and Finn escape the Star Destroyer. Like the whole movie had been like really good up until that point, But after the prequels, which again, I appreciate a lot of them now, but the character dynamics in those movies is so sterile in a lot of ways.
Bland, yep.
The Poe and Finn escaping the Star Destroyer energized me. Because their back and forth is so great, and you can tell from the jump, it's like, oh, these two are awesome together. I know a lot of people even wanted them to be a romantic pairing at one point, and I don't know, maybe this is just like straight boy blindness, but I never saw them as like a romantic pairing. It more felt like bros to me. But also in episode 8, there's a shot of them like someone like walks between them in the hallway, which is the same as the shot in Empire where someone walks between Han and Leia in the hallway. So I see it. I never read their relationship that way, but again, maybe that's just me not picking up on hints being left down. I know Oscar Isaac was into the idea. I don't remember what John Boyega said, but apparently Disney was not fine with that.
Like, no, we gotta think about all the markets here.
Yeah, but just their back and forth, and I love when Finn's like, oh, FN2187, Poe's like, what?
Hey, what's your name? FN2187. What? That's the only name they ever gave me. Well, I ain't using it. FN, huh? Finn, I'm gonna call you Finn, is that alright? Finn. Yeah, Finn, I like that. I'm Poe Dameron. Good to meet you, Poe. Good to meet you too, Finn.
It's just like, oh, this is awesome.
Well, like, Han's a great character in this movie too. Well, in the OG trilogy, he was like always so skeptical of the Force. He was like, kid, you just the blaster is better than this invisible Force. Whatever. I'm butchering the line.
Yeah.
But like, he's kind of come full circle now throughout his entire life and everything that he's seen. And now he's like,
it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo, a magical power holding together good and evil, the dark side and the light. The crazy thing is, it's true. The Force, a Jedi, all of it.
But I do think it's a testimony to this film's strength that we don't see any of the legacy characters, including Han, until about 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
I think a couple years ago, I mapped it out. I think it's almost to the minute in runtime to when Han is introduced in the original movie.
oh, wow.
It's about 45, 46 minutes, and it's like, it speaks to a lot of confidence on the filmmaker's part that like, they're like, you will be engaged enough in what these new characters are doing to where you won't be thinking like, when am I going to see Luke? When am I going to see Leia, Han? And I speaking for myself, I felt that. I was so engrossed in what was going on with Rey and Finn, and they're like, and like wondering if Poe was going to be all right, to where I didn't even like, when Han and Chewie showed up, I'm like, oh my god, they're here.
Oh yay, they're here finally, cool.
Yeah, but like you were saying, I really love that Han is the Ben Kenobi of this trilogy for Rey. One, because Harrison Ford is back, and he's really good.
Oh yeah,
he's really good in this movie, and it seems like he did really give it his all. Like, after years and years and years of hearing people talk about how much Harrison Ford fucking hates Star Wars and Han Solo specifically, it was nice to see him like come back and just really commit to the character. And I've always maintained that I don't think Harrison Ford actually hates Star Wars. I think he hates talking about Star Wars, and I think he hates playing Han in a role where Han is not interesting. Like Return of the Jedi, Han doesn't have anything to do in that movie once they rescue him from Jabba, and I can understand the frustration of being like along for the ride. We talked about that in our original trilogy video, but also like the way I think about it with Harrison Ford is like, this was his first big role, Han Solo. Just imagine if you're in your 60s and 70s, you've had a whole storied career in many different roles, done a lot of really interesting things, but all people want to fucking talk about is that first thing. Like, you would be resentful about that too. It's like, it's not his fault that the first major role he had ended up being one of the most popular things ever.
Yeah, right. So you're totally right. But yeah, I think like Han's such a great character in this movie because he's got a good dynamic with everybody. Like, he's very quippy, and you can tell he's got kind of the storied history. And then I just love like I think him and Finn really vibe together really well. They're really funny on screen together, like when they're on Starkiller Base and Finn's like, we'll use the Force. He's like, that's not how the Force works.
I really liked that. And I liked him as the mentor in this movie because he's a very different mentor than Obi-Wan was, obviously. They're entirely different people, and they don't compromise that. Like, he's not teaching Rey about the Force and Jedi shit. He's trying to hire her to be on his smuggling crew. He's Han.
Yeah, he's Han.
He's as Luke says in the next movie, Han was Han about it. I also respect the hell out of them for having Luke be essentially absent for the entire first movie. Like, that's one of the things I alluded to earlier about this movie taking more risks than it gets credit for. Like, keeping the main character of the original trilogy completely off screen until the last, 90 seconds of the film. That's pretty ballsy. Killing off Han Solo is also pretty ballsy.
Big risk, yeah.
We'll talk about that towards the end of this part of the discussion, I think. But
I think this movie overall, I think it does a pretty good job of striking the appropriate balance that you feel for most Star Wars movies between tension and action and then also comedy. There's a balancing act.
Yeah, I think one criticism of this movie's story and plot structure that I do actually agree with is there are too many beats, especially in the middle, where it's just they're trying to have a conversation and then something happens. Yes. An explosion happens or new people just show up and they have to react. It's Rey and Finn are a bit too they're not proactive protagonists for a good chunk of this movie. And I think taking out just one of those beats would fix the problem. It's just 3 or 4 of them in a row where it's just, oh, we got to escape these people. Oh no, we got to escape these people. And we got to escape these people now. And it's just okay, slow down.
Give us a minute to breathe.
Yeah, I think I said in my video too, there are points where the pacing is just a little bit too fast. We don't just cut out one of the action sequences, and I think we would have been fine. Probably the Rathgar sequence is the one that's most cuttable, even though it is very fun. Yeah. It's there's this clear effort in the movie to go back to the original roots of the franchise. Here, they even shot the trilogy on film, which George Lucas did not do for the prequels, at least episode 2 and 3. I don't remember. But
yeah, that was all digital, I'm sure.
Yeah, but there are 2 main areas where I think they go a little bit too far in being like A New Hope. And it's Starkiller Base and the First Order basically just being the Empire 2.0. The idea of a new generation of fascists being the villains works and is fitting for the political time we live in right now, obviously. But it would have been nice to have them be a little bit more visually distinct. Maybe different armor or something like that. And then Starkiller Base is just the Death Star but bigger and in a planet. I don't really think it added all that much to the story. I will say the shots of it look great. It is visually very cool. But I don't think it needed to be there.
Yeah, well, it's it feels like a cliche in a way, where it's oh, we had this really big weapon in the last movie. We need an even bigger weapon this time. We need a planet killer. And honestly, the whole concept of Starkiller Base is outlandish and absurd. You turned an entire planet into a planet killer. That's crazy. That is crazy. And I know you have to suspend your disbelief.
It's fun. I like it. I think it's the idea of it draining the sun is kind of neat. And I guess they have to like wait for the sun to recharge afterward. One thing we talked about when we were rewatching it that I think is kind of a fun element of how Starkiller would work. It's like if you're trying to shoot a specific planet, you would have to wait for like the rotation of the Starkiller planet to like be lined up, which I think that's kind of fun.
I do like that, yeah. But they don't even really talk about that.
No, they don't talk. That was just us speculating. Because
you need to be facing the right direction.
Because you can't aim it. It's a planet.
Yeah, you need to be facing the right direction at the right time. And
at the end, they blow it up because it's the thing. They got to blow up the Death Star thing. But it's like, dog, that's a planet. There's like ecosystems and shit there.
Yeah. How many species did you just kill? The other thing that's kind of weird is like the New Republic in this movie too. Because it's like, I feel like, yeah, they're just not included in this movie. Like, we get like one shot of just like the people on the planet before it blows up, but like they don't really do that much, and then they're destroyed by a space weapon.
Yeah, there's a deleted scene or two that involves them a little bit more, but that's one thing I really don't love about this. I think it was a big misstep destroying the New Republic. And I guess the movie says the Hosnian system was destroyed, so maybe not the entire Republic, but the movie treats it like the whole Republic just got blown up.
Exactly.
And I feel like this was another effort to like fully reestablish the Rebels versus Empire dynamic from the original trilogy, and I don't think that was entirely necessary. Like, what I would have done instead is just have, like, because the relationship at the start is supposed to be, and I found this out from, like, I don't know, all the fucking, like, talk shows I used to watch about Star Wars and all the canon shit that was coming out, but it's like, basically, the Republic exists, the First Order is building off in the, like, unknown regions or whatever, and the Republic just doesn't really think they're that much of a threat. They're demilitarized as well, and they don't want to deal with it. But Leia is like, this is a fucking problem, so I'm gonna make the Resistance and go operate in like First Order areas and do my thing. What I would do is just have the First Order do something really like big and bold, and it paralyzes the Republic in fear, and so the only people willing to fight are like Leia and her little band of heroes. You can have the same dynamic without blowing up the entire goddamn Republic, because
for sure,
like a negative side effect it's had on the franchise as a whole now is like, it just makes all the New Republic stuff that we see in other shows less satisfying.
Yeah, because you're like, they're dead.
Exactly. Because I'm like, and I have a lot of issues with like the Ahsoka show and the later seasons of The Mandalorian and stuff like that. But like, I wanna like enjoy the New Republic stuff because it's kind of satisfying to see the like the little fledgling government, the like follow up to the rebellion, and see them trying to like build something. But every one of those scenes, I'm like, well, it's not gonna last very long.
I know,
it's gonna, so it undermines all that stuff.
Yeah.
If the shows like Ahsoka and The Mandalorian like leaned into that tragedy a bit more, like made it more foreboding, maybe it would work. But they kind of don't.
Yeah, I get what you mean there.
But it's just kind of, it's kind of a bummer. Also, what is it with J.J. Abrams and destroying entire planets? Musical star Gracie Abrams, check on your dad or something, because like he blows up the Hosnian system in this. Starkiller Base is on a planet, which also gets blown up. He fucking blew up Vulcan in Star Trek, and then
yeah, there's a theme here. There's a thread.
I think it might just be a limitation in his like storytelling capabilities, where like the stakes have to be super, super high. What's the highest stake you can have? An entire planet's at risk. It's too much.
It is, and I think like in general, like the New Republic stuff, like I agree, because like there's no emotional connection established with them in this movie. I think that they kind of wrote themselves into like making that decision to blow up the Republic. They kind of wrote themselves into like this proverbial or like a box.
Yeah.
It was kind of short-sighted. They just kind of took like one of their proverbial creative tools out of the box and just got rid of it. They're like, we're not going to touch that again, and now it's much more restricted, much more limited. And I do like some of the stuff that they did with the New Republic in Ahsoka, in The Mandalorian. I think that stuff is cool, and just to see how it's like rounding out that world. But like to your point, it does feel a little empty and hollow because we know what happens to them. And like, I know that the destruction, because just going back to the original movie, Alderaan, we don't know anything about Alderaan. We just know that they're a peace-loving people, and it's Leia's homeworld and stuff. And so like we have that emotional connection, but we don't know anyone there, and then it gets blown up.
But that's the emotional connection.
For sure.
It's Leia's home. Yeah. And like that
we don't have that same thing here in Episode 7. Like, oh yeah, all these people just lost their lives, but we knew nothing about them. No one seemed to care about the Republic or like the Republic, so like they just kind of seem to be doing nothing, just out there on their systems. And I'll also say too that I agree with your point on like the visual changes of like the factions here. Like Empire just becomes First Order, Rebels just become the Resistance, and like, yeah, I agree. I wish there was a bit of a more visual difference between those, like, the factions evolving. Like,
I'm more okay with it on the Resistance side because it's just like it's the same group of people. Like the rebellion became the Republic. They use the same ships, have the same uniforms and all that. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But I would have loved for like the First Order to be, you know, a different flavor of fash. You know?
Yeah, a different flavor of fascism. Yeah. Well, and say what you will about the prequels, but when I think about it, it's like Separatists. So unique in them. They're so different. It's something entirely different. It's just like battle droids.
Yeah.
And even the Republic, like the clone troopers, they do look similar to the stormtroopers, obviously, but there's so much visual difference.
But they're the good guys too.
They're the good guys, yeah. And just like those two factions are just like so visually different than what we had in the OG trilogy. And so like, yeah, I would have liked something that's like a little bit more like that. That's not just a copy of their predecessor, you know.
One thing I also don't like about this trilogy as a whole is just how small everything feels. Like the whole, like I think the exceptions are kind of Canto Bight and Kijimi in episode 9, because they're like actual settlements and cities, but it's like almost every location in this trilogy feels like a completely isolated little place. Nema Outpost, where Rey sells her little stuff to get portions. It's like it's just a little fenced enclave. And then Maz Kanata's castle is a perfect example of this. It's just like an isolated castle in the forest, and like every location is just so empty or so tiny. And the conflict itself feels smaller too.
Yes.
Everything feels like it's just like, and the original trilogy had smaller scale elements as well. But I don't know, it just feels a little bit bigger, maybe because of Bespin being such a big location. I don't know, and Mos Eisley in the first movie is like a city. I don't know why this trilogy feels this way specifically, but it makes it feel like the whole conflict is just like between 100 people when it's not, until the very end. Yeah, it feels a little tiny, and I wish it didn't.
I get that.
But yeah, transitioning to back to some positives of Kylo Ren. I love him as the main villain. Adam Driver is amazing here. Yeah, we haven't really talked about the performances all that much. Everybody's fucking great in this. Yeah. Also, fun fact about this movie and my time in London. One of my friends over there was, I believe she said, one of the final 6 candidates for Rey.
Whoa, that's really cool.
If I remember correctly, what she told me is like, these type of projects, they never tell you you're auditioning for fucking Star Wars, but everybody knew it was Star Wars.
It's a neat little detail. But yeah, I love Kylo Ren. He's such a strong character in this movie. He's being pulled between the light and the dark, and
I feel it again, the pull to the light. Like he's trying to resist the urge to follow the light side, which is such a nice inversion of what we're used to.
Because you expect more of that pull to the dark, considering Anakin and Luke and everything. But I also really like the competing dynamic, or the competitive dynamic between Hux and Kylo Ren in Force Awakens, and in like Episode 8 too.
I like that they hate each other.
Yeah,
it's fun.
And they're kind of trying to undercut each other a little bit in this movie, and kind of being a little snippy with each other. And then they carry that into Episode 8, and I think that's just really, really strong.
Yeah. Well, and before going further with that, like I love that Kylo Ren, the main villain of the trilogy, is the son of Han and Leia. Like it gives both Han and Leia a lot of emotional stuff to do in this movie, which is probably why Harrison Ford was willing to come back at all, aside from the money. But I think like Han gets a lot of great material because the villain is his son, and the tragedy of this character is that he's kind of a symbol of failure for all 3 of our original 3 heroes. With Hux and Kylo Ren, I love their little like constant pissing contest. I also love that, like, because the Empire is very fearsome and serious, right, in the original trilogy, and the First Order is kind of a very good, honest portrayal of what fascists look like. They're all fucking dweeb losers. And Hux embodies this so perfectly. He like is always screeching and like yelling about how awesome like the violence they're doing is, and it's like it's so clearly a desperate projection of
just like please vindicate me.
Yeah, like when he's giving his his like Nuremberg rally address or whatever. Was it Nuremberg? Whatever. He's just like yelling at everybody, and then you got Snoke, who's the I did love. I think everybody in the theater was thinking the same thing when he first shows up. It's like, is he really that big?
Is he a giant? Oh my god! There's giants in Star Wars.
Just a projection. But I mean, one thing too that it's like another thing about the small feeling of this movie. In that room where they meet with him, it's like it's full of chairs. Presumably there's like some sort of governance in the First Order, but we never fucking see it.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just like it's always happening off screen somewhere, and it's just these three guys having a meeting. It's just like feelings like that. But I like Snoke fine for the role he plays in this.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I don't mind Snoke at all. Like I think he's a good master character to Kylo, especially in this first one. Just like he's because there's so much when he's introduced in Force Awakens. It's just like, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Like an intriguing new villain who's kind of being this puppet master role similar to Palpatine. Was from the originals, and he's this towering hologram. And there's so much mystery around his origin, and like I remember for like those 2 years between the two movies.
I will say,
curious.
The mystery around his origin was entirely driven by the fandom.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The movie, because this is something that really bothered me about people's reaction to Snoke. Why does he have to be someone you're familiar with? Remember, everybody thought he was like Darth Plagueis for a while, and then they were like, well, and people always got mad at like the Last Jedi in this movie. It's like, well, how is he so powerful if he's just like a random guy? It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, like,
he's just a fucking bad guy. Like evil people can just exist.
Yeah, Palpatine was a random guy until he was Palpatine.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like the Force Awakens. The Force Awakens asks a lot of questions. It poses a lot of mysteries. One mystery it does not pose is who is Snoke. It's just like, here he is.
It's the bad guy. It's the master guy. Yeah.
That's the problem with like all the fandom like channels and streams and stuff like that. It's like they always have to be speculating about everything, which made them speculate about something that wasn't meant to be speculated on. You know what I mean?
No, that's totally fair. And having finished the trilogy and everything, it's like I go back and forth on my feelings with Snoke because I think he's a good character overall, but he is a clone for Palpatine, and it's kind of this whole puppet master deal. And
we'll get to that.
I also would have liked it if Snoke was not a puppet and he was his own person.
No, just let him be his own fucking guy.
He doesn't need to be a clone. He could have just been this evil dude, and then whatever.
We'll get to it. We'll
get to it. We got a lot to cover. But yeah, some other positives that I'll say that I liked. I like Maz Kanata. I think she's got a cool vibe. You already talked about her.
Yeah.
But I like her whole hideout place. I think it's super cool. Cantina vibes. And I think her character is super interesting overall, too.
Yeah.
That said, I think that she should have just been a one-movie deal. She comes back in episode 8 and she's anti-union, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Maybe she's fighting for the union, but it didn't seem like it.
It really did not seem like she was fighting for the union.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like this character, but it does feel like she's forced into 8 and 9 because she has nothing to do in either of those movies. But I really like her line in this, where it's like if you live long enough, you start to see the same eyes in different people. It's such a neat concept for like a long-lived character to just sort of be able to intuit the type of person someone is in that kind of way.
Yeah, just be able to look at their eyes and be like, I know you're running from something.
Exactly. Finn is a little bit weird in this part of the movie, where he's like on board for getting BB-8 back to the Resistance up until this point, and then all of a sudden he's like, there's no fighting the First Order, we have to run. It's like, what?
Yeah, he just kind of changes entirely.
He kind of changes for a little bit, and like it doesn't last very long. But it's a odd stretch here.
Yeah, that part's a little odd.
Yeah, I do love Rey's what was called the Force back. It's like a flashback to like it's such an awesome interesting sequence overall, and like she gets it because she touches Luke's lightsaber. Another thing that people got obsessed about, it's like, how does she have it? And like, dude, I don't know, man.
You don't need to know.
Yeah, and like the thing that gets me all the time is like, because in the scene, Han is like, how did you get that? And then Muscana's like, a story for another time. It's like, that's the movie looking you in the eye and saying like, don't worry about it. It's not important. Like, it's been 33 years or whatever since Luke lost it. At some point in time, it came into her possession. It doesn't fucking matter. Move on.
Someone found it, she bought it, whatever.
The point is that it's here now, and Rey is gonna use it, and it's speaking to her, which is totally fine. Like, you get the sense that Maz Kanata collects a lot of, like, things. But I like that sequence. I like that it freaks Rey the fuck out.
Freaked me out.
Yeah, it would be kind of scary. I also really like the battle scene that happens right after this.
That's cool.
You get some fun Han stuff in it. They really, the amount of damage they do to that castle is just unnecessary.
Oh, it's rubble. It's rubble at the end.
It's the bar, man. You didn't have to do that.
It's like, come on, there are people eating and drinking in there.
Yeah.
You have to come in.
And I love the shot of the X-Wings flying low over the water. It's types of stuff like that due to the limitations of technology we couldn't get in the original trilogy, right? And now you can. This is our reveal that Poe Dameron is alive again as well. Let's see what else happens. Leia shows up finally. Leia and 3PO. I love
3PO with his red arm.
It's like, you probably didn't recognize me because of the red.
Because of this arm.
You probably didn't recognize me because of the red arm. It's so great.
It's a great introduction. Great reunion of characters there. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the ending, this third act?
Yeah. So Han's death. Obviously, big moment. That like they have to like blow up the stuff to help the fleet blow up the Starkiller base or whatever.
Take out the shields.
Yeah, it's like
shoot it.
It's interesting because like the criticism of this just being A New Hope again. It's like, yeah, there's a space battle and a trench run, but it's just kind of like in the background. It's not really the focal point of the climax of this movie, which is another distinction between this and the original. But yeah, I think. One, you get the reveal that Kylo Ren's name is Ben.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, that hit for whatever reason.
Good choice.
But I love, and the main criticism at the time, I remember thinking, it's like, oh, they're telegraphing his death so much. It's like, yeah, man, you're supposed to feel that. It's the feeling of dread. Like, you know what's going to happen now. Because I don't think Kylo Ren fully knew he was going to kill Han at first in that moment.
I agree.
I think he's being torn apart. I think he's being honest in his emotional state here. But then you see as the light's leaving, that's when he fully commits to the dark side. It's not that revolutionary, but it's like, yeah, but it works. I love at the last moment too, even after he stabbed him, like Han still like caresses his cheek, falls. Yeah.
I mean, that's such a beautiful scene in general, and I love that one shot. It's so cinematic, where it's just that Han's walking out on the bridge to meet Ben. And it's just like beautiful. The light coming in. It is such a beautiful shot. And yeah, like it's a good confrontation between the two. It's very emotionally powerful. Yeah, I would say there.
Yeah, it really works. We'll talk about it in episode 9, but I like how it plays in episode 9 as well.
Poetry, it rhymes. I do like that part. And then I think that the assault on Starkiller base is neat. It's very cool. And the lightsaber duels in the snowy forest are phenomenal, in my opinion. Like, it's a unique environment that we've never really seen before, where all this snow is going around.
Yeah.
It's very dark out. There's trees everywhere. And like just the visual effects with the blue and the red on the snow reflecting on them too is really cool, that we haven't necessarily seen before.
Yeah, because they took a different approach to the lightsabers in this trilogy. Usually they're like the handle and then a little green screen stick. And then they would put the effect in afterward. And what they did for this trilogy is they had more sort of like the like fucking toys you can get at Disneyland, where it's like a blade that lights up in the color. And the reason they did that is so that the color of the blades acted as a light source in the scene, which there are two arguments on it. One, I think it looks cool, naturalistic. It adds great color to the scene. But the counter argument that I actually kind of agree with as well, I agree with both, that the lightsabers look less otherworldly in this trilogy. The blades in the prequels and the originals like look more magical, I guess, or more. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like they look more distinct because they're really not in the scene, and it gives them this like interesting flair.
Sure. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, and like, you know, when the blades move in all the other movies, like you get that whoosh effect that you don't get as much of in this trilogy, which is fine. But I really love the duel. I like all the duels in this trilogy. Yeah. I think there's it's a change in approach from the prequels, where the prequels were very much like dances, very intense choreography, lots of quick moves.
Yes.
And these fights are very weighty, which goes back to how George initially described the lightsaber to Mark Hamill in the originals. He's like, it's very heavy. It's like you're holding Excalibur, I think is what he said. And this feels a lot like that. Like, the big swings, not always super precise.
Yeah, there's weight behind it. There's some force, and like, I feel like there's more like savagery in a way. Like, it's not elegant where the Jedi learned how to like handle themselves. It's like you see Rey and Finn and Kylo swinging like crazy.
And the sound design of the lightsabers in this trilogy is great. It's very punchy. It's a deeper sound, I think, than we're used to, but it really, really works. Like when they hit each other, you really feel that. And I think you're right. There is a savagery to it, especially in Rey's fighting style. Rey and Kylo Ren are both like pretty brutal fighters.
Yeah.
In all the movies, and they yell a lot.
Yeah, but like they're swinging kind of erratically. Like they're not trained properly.
Right.
Like the prequel era Jedi were, I suppose.
Exactly.
So, like, I like that about this. They feel unprepared.
Yeah. And I really love that one wide shot where they are like each blocking each other, and like one lightsaber is up and the other one's into the ground. My favorite moment of the fight though is when Kylo is trying to force pull the lightsaber to him, and then it loops around and Rey catches it, and like she's surprised, it looks like too. It's so good, and then the music swells. It's like the perfect climax to a new character's like introduction story. I remember a lot of people thought this would be when Luke shows up. Mark Hamill thought that as well, and that Luke would be the one catching the saber, and I'm so glad that's not what happened.
I'm glad it was just...
because it's not his story anymore. But...
absolutely. It's very satisfying ending to Force Awakens, I would say.
Yeah, and then, well, I mean, the real ending to The Force Awakens is they piece the map back together, R2-D2 wakes back up, and they put it together, and then Rey goes off to go find Luke, and, God, it's such a cool... I do agree, because she goes to Skellig-Michael Island, and she goes up and she finds him there, and the music swells, and it's amazing, and you get this, like, really foreboding look on Luke's face. It's the perfect ending to, like, it's like the new generation is reaching out to the previous generation asking for help, and it's like, oh, thank God, like, this is gonna be so cool. I do agree with Red Letter Media's critique, though, that, like, the final shot being that helicopter shot, it's like, just ended on Luke's face. That's where he kind of, like, does that a little bit, and you're like...
I need to see them standing awkwardly, like, can you take the sword, please?
But it's, in I guess, first movie of the trilogy tradition, it, like the original, ends in a scene that would be completely ridiculous if you remove the music. Because she's just standing there like this for like 90 seconds, and then in the original movie, you know, when they walk down to get the medals, have you ever seen that without the music in it? It's so funny. Because everyone is dead silent. Because like in a real event like that, you would have someone speaking and like giving it.
Right.
But no, it's just dead silent.
It's just them. It's just like, oh God.
You hear like the rubber of their costumes. It's pretty funny. But I think any final thoughts on The Force Awakens before we move on?
I think I've said enough on it.
Yeah. I love this movie. I think it's a great foundational piece for the new era. Before we move on to The Last Jedi, because this is a thing that sort of came into fully its own with the release of this movie and into the release of The Last Jedi, is The culture war.
Yep.
It became like an industry to basically bitch and moan about anything like woke is what they call it now.
Yep.
At that time, what was it? Was it political correctness or was it CRT? I don't remember the term they used specifically. They change them up every couple of years to keep it fresh, you know. But it's like all the like YouTubers that just like, I don't even watch stuff about Star Wars on YouTube anymore, unless it's from a YouTuber I know already, because it's like, there's a chance they're just gonna fucking complain about women. They gotta put Kathleen Kennedy in the thumbnail with like laser beams in her eyes, and then they'll put Kelly Marie Tran in there too, or Daisy Ridley, and it's fucking exhausting. It's like, at this point, it's everything.
Yeah.
Like, people are like the fucking stupid ex-game developer guys complaining about the Oblivion remake because you can, like, I guess, be non-binary in it if you want to.
Okay. That's yep. So that's what we're gonna focus our attention on these days.
Yeah, but it's like it became part of, like, I guess it was always there. The misogyny and racism elements of geek culture have always been present, but but people became more comfortable taking the masks off, and I think part of that is the Trump era being what it is, or was in that era, and now is again. It sucks. It really sucks. And it's like every actress and actor of color in this trilogy received insane harassment from Star Wars fans. Like, Daisy Ridley deleted her social media for a long time. John Boyega was super harassed. Kelly Marie Tran got it really fucking bad.
Yeah.
It's just unacceptable behavior, and it sucks to talk about, but it's, I don't know, like, be better. And there are lots of parts of the fandom that are not like this, fortunately, but it sucks that if you, like, type Star Wars and Disney into YouTube, you'll get, like, thousands of videos that are just, like, people in their basement sitting in front of, like, 1,000 Funko Pops or whatever, just complaining about women and black people. Mm-hmm. And, like, I don't know.
Guys, this is really what you want to do with your life? And complain about a franchise that you have no control over? Like, it's absurd, and it's so toxic, and yeah, I don't like the fandom that has become today. It's just not fun in a lot of ways.
And it's not even to say you have to like everything in Disney Star Wars. Like, we don't. We've critiqued a lot of the stuff on our podcast, like, pretty negatively, honestly, and we're going to critique Rise of Skywalker pretty negatively in a little bit. But it's like, there's criticism, there's analysis, and then there's like,
just
hatred, yeah. Like, and if you fucking hate it, just stop watching. Do something else.
Yeah, like, you don't need to watch Star Wars. There's other things to watch.
But I think we can move on at this point. But it's important to talk about. It affects real people, and it's shitty, and it's nonstop. It's exhausting.
And we will talk about it more in our discussion on episode 8.
So my title for it, can't tell Mary Lou or show to anybody. This is just me and you, because I really only got it right now. The Last Jedi.
Ooh. Wow. That means me.
It's you, buddy.
Simple. Direct.
It's nice,
powerful.
right?
Yeah.
You like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad I didn't know. I mean, it's an added burden when I think of it.
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. Here we are, in the middle of the trilogy. Before we dive in on The Last Jedi, I want to plug Dylan. He put out a YouTube video a while ago on episode 8. 2 of them?
I've done 2 Last Jedi videos, yeah.
I encourage you all to go check them out, because Dylan has some very thought-provoking ideas in those D-Day movies. And I think he did a pretty good job of summarizing why episode 8 is good.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah, I don't know how well those videos hold up. One of them was my very first ever YouTube video, so I know from a video editing perspective, leaves a lot to be desired. I think the second one is probably better, but watch my Arcane video. That one's really good. That one I stand by entirely. But yeah, this is my favorite of the trilogy. I think it's just a really, really strong film.
Yeah, no, I think episode 8, in my opinion, supremely underrated. It got so much unmerited and unjustified hate and backlash when it was released in 2017, I feel like. Yeah. We were talking about this a little bit ago when we were wrapping up Force Awakens, but like, if you were paying attention at the time to pop culture and the discussions in pop culture in 2017, 2018 time, you would have thought that this movie, Episode 8, set the world on fire. Like, it was, like, people had such adverse reactions to it, like, and in a way it did. It did change the world. It changed pop culture.
Well, have you considered that it's very disrespectful to Luke Skywalker?
I have, and I disagree.
and have you considered that Jar Jar Abrams and Ruin Johnson destroyed Star Wars?
I thought that was Kathleen Kennedy and Laura Dern.
Well, them too. Obviously.
Because, they just ruined Star Wars with this movie, and I think that the backlash around it significantly contributed to like kind of the toxic pop culture, toxic fandom of Star Wars that we know today. Mm-hmm. To me, it just kind of felt like a watershed moment.
Yeah.
Coming out.
Well, it feels like a successor to like Gamergate, kind of. The thing that I find so annoying about it, other than it being annoying and like cruel in and of itself, like the brand of critique, it I think did change the way they make Star Wars media. You can definitely see it in Episode 9, but it's like outside of Andor and to a lesser degree, in a different way, Visions, like so much of the Star Wars stuff now seems to just be catering to a smaller and smaller portion of fans. It's like it is like keys jangling a lot of the time. It's just, which is ironic because these fucking people who had this backlash still hate all that stuff. But it's just like, it's no longer as much about telling a quality story as it is about making sure it's something the quote-unquote fans want to see. Because the fans didn't like how Luke was different than they expected. They didn't like seeing the cocksure pilot kind of put in his place a little bit. They didn't like... I don't know what else.
They didn't like Rose.
They didn't like Rose, yeah.
Rose. They didn't like Admiral Holdo. They didn't like decisions that the creators made. They didn't like that Snoke, or they didn't like that Rey was, a nobody in this movie. A lot of people were expecting her to be related to like Obi-Wan or someone we'd known before, and she wasn't. And it was like, a lot of people got upset about that.
Yeah, well, and what I realized too in the aftermath of this movie, because there was a point where I was like, oh, it would be cool if Rey was a Kenobi, and that's how I felt for a while. And then the movie came out and she was nobody, and I was like, oh, this fits, this works. And then I was thinking about like, why did I want her to be a fucking Kenobi? Like, what would that? And I realized like the reasoning in my brain was, oh, because then it would be Obi-Wan's granddaughter fighting Anakin's grandson. And I was like, that has nothing to do with Rey or Kylo Ren's characters at all. It was entirely like my fan brain projecting lore onto a story that wasn't appropriate. And that's what I think a lot of people did with this movie. Because like, if you think about The Force Awakens in relation to The Last Jedi, a lot of people like to say that The Last Jedi ignored everything The Force Awakens set up. And it's like, not really. The Force Awakens, to me, is we talked about it a little while ago, it's like J.J. Abrams likes asking questions. He likes posing, presenting mysteries. So The Force Awakens asked the question, who are Rey's parents? It asked the question, why is Luke disappeared? But it didn't say Rey's parents are someone important from the lore. It just was like, who were they? And then I love the Ryan, and this is written and directed by Rian Johnson, obviously. I love his approach to it, is because like someone asked him in an interview, are Rey's parents important? Like, is their identity important? And then his response was, it's important to her.
I like that.
And we'll dive more into that a little bit later. But let's talk about the opening of the movie a little bit too. You want to start with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's fucking dope is what it is. Like we start the movie like literally like hours after Starkiller Base or a day or something like that. Like a little bit of time has passed, but it's like so immediately after. Like
which is a first for Star Wars.
It's a first because in a lot of Star Wars movies it's either been like months or years or something like that. And now this one is just like, nope, we're just kind of picking right back up where we left things off. And I think it's a really great idea. And then the whole battle, I don't even remember the name of the planet, but that, like in space, in orbit around.
The Eilenian system.
Eilenian system, that's what it is. Thank you. But like just the bombing run that Poe leads is really cool. I think that like the dialogue between Poe and Hux is a little silly, but I'm willing to overlook that because the rest of it's so fucking cool.
Leia has an urgent message about his mother. I understand why that type of humor rubs people the wrong way in Star Wars. I also I don't love that like damn and ass are words that exist in Star Wars now because of it's not a huge deal, but I kind of think it's cute when like fantasy series have their own like in-universe curse words. And it's just like, oh, now we have the phrase big ass door in Star Wars. There are things like that, and then we didn't talk about it in the last one, but there were a couple lines that Finn has in The Force Awakens that just feel like too modern, like too Earth lingo.
Sure.
I'm trying to remember the one specifically, but it doesn't matter. But there are just a couple moments like that throughout this trilogy where I'm like, that line doesn't feel Star Wars-y necessarily, which is fine. It's not a huge deal, but I love the opening battle of this. It almost tells its own complete story while also setting up Poe's major arc for the movie, right? Because he is viewing it as like, this is a huge opportunity to destroy this ship and it's worth the cost because it's like a big military victory thing, right? And then they lose like their entire bombing fleet and half of the fighters. And then you get Rose's sister, Paige. You get that whole sequence. I remember in the theater, like, when the remote drops beneath her, it was dead silent in our theater, and then everybody was like, oh. Yeah. Like, it's the filmmaking on display here is so brilliant. And people, for whatever reason, like, they really hated those bombers. Remember the outrage about the bombs dropping in space? And then, like, one, you can see that they're like being propelled by the ship. It's in the shot. You can look at it. You can witness it. And then two, bombs in space has been a thing in Star Wars since 1980. Well, actually, probably 1977 because the Y-wings are bombers, and you know, I guess you could argue they're bombing towards the Death Star, which has a center of gravity or something.
But like in Episode 5, they have the bombers.
In the asteroid belt, exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure there's like. Someone will come and it's like, those aren't actually bombs, they're actually like blah, 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 blah. This Star Wars specific thing, and they're actually like drawn to services or whatever. It's like, you know what, that shit came up later. They had bombs in space in Empire, and then they found some bullshit lore reason to justify it later. And you didn't have a problem with it in Empire because you were a fucking baby, probably, and you shouldn't have a problem with it because who cares?
It's sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah, and then the other thing was like the bombers are so ineffective. Why would they use these instead of Y-wings? Like, well, maybe they don't have Y-wings because they don't have as many resources as they did when they were the fully formed Rebel Alliance. They have these old fucking junk ships. And then more importantly, they have the big bombers because they're like big World War II bombers. And Star Wars space battles are like World War II in space. It's an aesthetic choice, and it's cool. Yes. So I also really love the Captain Kennedy guy.
He's cool.
The Imperial, like, not Imperial, the First Order officer who's just so fucking annoyed with everything.
That puny ship is too small and to too close range. We need to scramble out fighters. 5 bloody minutes ago.
He'll never penetrate our armor.
He's not trying to penetrate our armor. He's clearing out our surface cannons.
He's great. He's a great antagonist for this little arc, and he's very old school Imperial.
Yeah, you know, it seemed like he was a holdover from the Empire, and he seemed all business, which was great. And then he just dies.
But he seems like obviously irritated that he has to answer to like Hux because he's like, He's like clearly a more senior officer. He's probably like from the Empire, like you mentioned, and it's like he's like, God damn it, I have to answer this idiot. It's like we should have scrambled our fighters already. What the fuck is going on?
I really like that guy too. He's got good energy, good focus.
Poe drifts in space.
Poe drifts in space.
Pretty cool. If you are annoyed by that, we probably wouldn't be friends. Shifting gears, I really enjoy the way Luke is used in this movie.
Yes.
I think so. If I remember correctly, Mark Hamill's talked about this in interviews. How like way back in the day, George approached him. It's like, how would you feel about like in a few decades, like coming back and being like the older King Arthur passing Excalibur down to the next generation, right? And that's kind of what we start to get here. And in the Arthur legend, I believe like Arthur becomes more cynical as he gets older as well. I haven't. It's been a long time since I've read Arthur stuff. The thing about it for me is Luke's story was wrapped up in Return of the Jedi. He had his hero's journey, he succeeded, he won the day, and his story was over. Yes. And in my mind, I'm like, well, if you're gonna bring him back, do something interesting with him. Like, justify why he's here. And I think that's what they did. And it's interesting that people didn't really have any backlash to how Han was handled last movie, but they had backlash to how Luke was handled, because I think they're handled in very similar ways. It's just Han backslides him into being a smuggler and like running around with Chewie, which gives us like warm nostalgia feels. But if you think about where Han was last time we saw him, he was like in a serious relationship with Leia, on the road to probably getting married and like doing all that stuff. So like you should feel kind of sad when you see him in The Force Awakens, like looking for his old car with his dog.
Yeah, you're doing the same thing that you were doing 30 years ago.
Exactly. He's regressed, and Luke is in a similar way. It's like you're not supposed to feel good about where Luke is. And the in my Last Jedi, one of my Last Jedi videos, I had you and Isabel do a skit. Remember, because the argument, like the lightsaber, the first thing he does when he throws the lightsaber over his shoulder, and people didn't like that. People thought it was too goofy and silly, and I'm like, I don't think it's silly at all. It's dramatic. And I remember a lot of like pundits would argue that it'd have the same impact if he just dropped it on the ground. It's like, no, it wouldn't.
Go to two equally reasonable friends' houses, fill up glasses of water at both houses. For one friend, drop the glass on the ground. For the other, shuck it backwards over your head. The reactions will be very different. Actually, don't do this. Breaking your friend's glassware for the purposes of the social experiment relating to a scene in a Star Wars movie would be a pretty shitty thing to do.
He's very deliberately saying, like, this is the representation of who I was, and fuck it. Like, I'm not doing it.
I'm not that person anymore. Like, I've given up that legacy. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you, because, it's... And I can kind of understand why some people would be upset, because, like, you ended the last movie on such a dramatic note, and then here it's like... Because I remember chuckling at that when he threw it over his shoulder, because it is kind of a little bit of a comedic moment, so I can understand a little bit of that, but... It's
shocking. It shocks you.
Because you don't expect it, and all of a sudden he does it, and you're like, oh no, there's more going on here than I thought.
But the one thing I think, like, makes it so effective is Rey is our main character. She's our point of view character. And she is obviously very much anticipating this moment, like we are, and him responding that way puts us immediately in line with her emotions. And the way I interpret the ending of The Force Awakens compared to this, because the scene is presented in a different way, right? Yes. At the end of The Force Awakens, there's like a long extended moment of her holding the saber out towards him, and they're looking at each other. And then in this movie, we see she takes it out of the bag and she hands it to him, and he takes it pretty much right away. And the way I interpret that is the end of The Force Awakens is subjective. It's not what's actually happening. It's how Rey is feeling about the moment. Like, it's a very big, dramatic thing. She's meeting this myth that she grew up hearing about and asking for his help. And in The Last Jedi, we're seeing the event as it actually unfolded, the objective, like, portrayal of it. And so look at The Force Awakens, it's like it's a really important moment for her. This is a big deal. She's finally meeting Luke Skywalker, and then he abruptly shuts it down and walks off. And she's frustrated by it in the same way that we are. So now we're aligned with our point of view character, in dealing with this problem that is Luke.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like overall the choice that they made to have him kind of turn his back on the Force and go into hiding and be like, I just came to this island to die. I think it makes sense for his character and the direction that he was heading on from the last trilogy. And I think like Luke was smart in the OG trilogy, not as smart as Leia. I think Leia's the smartest character in that entire series. But like, I think that he's smart enough to recognize the failures of the Jedi and realize that, oh yeah, the prequel era Jedi, the Jedi that are supposed to be the height, like the actual Jedi, they're hypocrites, they're inept, they're self-righteous, he recognizes the hubris of the Jedi.
Right. I mean, the reason he's really hiding is like shame and stuff, because he was supposed to be better than that, and he succumbed. And people get mad that he was like, oh, Luke Skywalker would never try to kill his nephew. It's like, well, he didn't. He didn't actually try to kill him. If you pay attention to the scene, it's like, yeah, in Kylo Ren's recollection of events, it looks like Luke is trying to kill him, but that's not the accurate portrayal. We see Luke's lie, then we see Kylo's perspective, and then we see the truth. And in the truth, it's just, like, people say this is all out of character, but everything Luke does in that scene, to me, is very in character, and the reason it scares him so much is that it mirrors what he did with Vader, and it's even framed in the same way when he's, like, looking at his hand. It's the same shot. That's on purpose. In Return of the Jedi, remember, he goes to the Death Star specifically to redeem Vader. Like, that's the reason he's there, is to bring him back to the light. And as soon as Vader threatens Leia, he snaps and, like, tries to murder him until he comes back to his senses and throws down his weapon. Like we talked about in the original trilogy episode, that is when Luke is victorious over the Emperor, right there. And the reason Luke is so ashamed and scared of himself is that he looks into Ben Solo's mind, right, and then just instinctually, like, you have to do some work on your own and think about what might he have seen in there. Han and Leia's death. That's what I think he sees. And how does he, like, Luke has a history of reacting very rashly and with violence when Han and Leia are threatened.
Yes.
In Empire, he doesn't finish his training to go protect them and loses a fight because of it. And in Return of the Jedi, he almost kills Vader when Vader says he's going to try to turn Leia. Yeah. And so it makes total sense that he would just like on autopilot go for his weapon, and then he says, like, immediately I was like in shame and consequence, right? And it just so happened that Ben Solo woke up and saw him holding a sword over him. Like, that's not great. That's a bad look. But it's like he repeated his own mistake, which is something that I think is very human and a good lesson to learn. It's like, you don't just one day defeat your demons and then they're gone. They will always be there, and it's a constant battle, and you have to keep working on yourself and addressing, like, the darkness within you. Otherwise, it will rear its ugly head once again. And in his hubris as a Jedi, he didn't do that. And also, I think, like, the other part of the reason he stays hidden is, like, he probably is scared to see Leia after what he did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be kind of tough confronting your sibling again after. Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of turned your offspring into a crazy person.
Yeah, I did pull a sword on him. It was inappropriate. I shouldn't have done that.
I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, I think it totally makes sense for his character, everything that we know about him from the original series. It's like it would make sense, I think, for him to eventually come to this place.
In the behind-the-scenes stuff, and everybody's seen the interview where Mark Hamill talks about, like, he went to Rian Johnson, he's like...
And I told Brian this, it's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him.
The second part of that, obviously, is him saying...
Had trouble accepting what he saw for Luke. But again, I mean, I have to say, having seen the movie, I was wrong. I trust him. I have to trust him. I'm firmly in Ryan's camp now, having told him, I hate everything you've done to my character, and disavow it. But once I got that off my chest, I said, now lead me, oh guru.
Which is very interesting, because even now, I don't think Hamill likes this portrayal of Luke. I get the vibe that he's not happy about it, which is fine. He's entitled to his opinion. And I give Mark Hamill more grace on this weird opinion than I do the fans, because like for Mark Hamill, this is the character he'll be most remembered for. Like, it is a part of his career and part of his legacy. So I understand him being very protective of it. That makes sense. And I think creative disagreements behind the scenes are very good. And also in like those interviews, he said like, having said that to Ryan, I recognize like it is now my job to do the absolute best I can to realize your vision. I applaud Hamill for giving such an amazing performance for a portrayal that he so strongly disagreed with.
I don't think he ever got to the point where he thought, okay, I understand why Luke has to go at the end of this. But he was completely devoted to making what I had written the most powerful version it can possibly be on the screen. I'll always be dazzled by the fact that he had the generosity of spirit to do that, and always feel like I really, really owe him for that. You know, I don't take that lightly.
I think it is his best performance as the character.
That's great.
By far.
Yeah, it's so good. I think it's fantastic. And I really like just the general aesthetic of the island, too, that he's on. The Islanders are hilarious. Yeah. Skellig Michael?
Skellig Michael Island, yeah.
Michael Island. Shout out to Skellig Michael Island. The Islanders are hilarious. I love the Porgs. Porgs were the best invention for this movie. It's so funny, like, that they just had to, like, put these creatures in because there were too many, like, birds on the island.
Yeah, because the island is a bird sanctuary, so that's why they filmed a decent chunk of this section of the movie, like, well ahead of the main production, I think, because they could only go there for a certain amount of time. Yeah. I think they went back a couple times for reshoots and stuff like that, but they shot a decent amount of it ahead of the rest of production. Yeah. Which is really interesting. And they did have little practical porgs there too that you see in the behind the scenes stuff, but I think you're right that it was the porgs were conceived because it was just deemed easier to like paint over the birds that live there with little puffin guys.
Rather than like take them out of the movie entirely. Like it's such a great idea. And just the general aesthetic of the island is so immaculate. It's beautiful. Yeah. I want to visit it one day, but like and I like how Rey just like follows Luke around on the island too, and it's just like, I've seen your days. You're not busy.
I know. I love her delivery of that line.
It's so funny. And like he does some cool, interesting things on there with the fishing. Like I think that part I really liked, just this 100 feet up fishing with this spear. It's like, that thing must weigh so much.
Yeah, like that could feed him for a month.
And then all the lessons that he teaches Rey on the island, I think are very true and very helpful for her character, and also emblematic of just like we were just talking about, the hubris of the Jedi, the failings of the Jedi. Like, if you're going to be a true Jedi, you would respect the balance, and you would not do anything to intervene in certain situations. Yeah. You know, like there's like tenets of the Jedi that the Jedi didn't practice. You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the point of the prequel era Jedi too is that they've completely lost their way. They've like over institutionalized what is supposed to be like a spiritual like journey.
The cult's gotten too big.
Yeah, it went and I love the idea that Luke is talking about with the balance of like the island, and like how the balance of the Force is like in the nature of the world and how things work, and it doesn't belong to anybody. Yeah. It just exists. On his training with Rey, I think it's really interesting stuff, because I did like going into this movie, I'm very excited to see what type of master Luke is. And for whatever reason, I and a lot of people, I think, had the impression that they were going to be like traveling the galaxy in their training. We get something very different. Yeah. But I think over the years, the fandom actually fell into the same misconception that the prequel era Jedi kind of did about Jedi training. Like the consensus seems to be about Rey specifically is like, she shouldn't be as like competent or powerful as she is because she hasn't had the proper training. Okay. Like she hasn't gone through the trials or done whatever. And I think Jedi training, like when done right, is less about like a curriculum or anything like that, but more about what the individual student needs. We can see this with Luke in the original trilogy, right? Like he had maybe an afternoon of training with Obi-Wan before Obi-Wan dies, and then what we'll call, like, generously say a week on Dagobah with Yoda, right? But when he goes back in Return of the Jedi, and probably partially because Yoda's dying and can't train him, but Yoda's like, no more training you require. It's about like an emotional journey and a connection, and Luke has already faced the truth that Vader is his father, and that's his trial. It's not about like amount of time doing combat training in the temple or whatever. It's about what you need to actualize and like do the right thing as a Jedi.
The trial for each person is unique.
And the Jedi turned being a Jedi into like an academic experience rather than a spiritual one. And that's why like Luke and Rey are both more effective Jedi than the ones in the prequels, because they go through the experience in like probably the correct way.
Yes.
And the lessons Luke teaches her, I think, are so interesting because like he's right in a lot of ways, but also he's coming to the wrong conclusions. Or he's like looking at it from the wrong lens. It's like, yes, the Force is for everybody and it exists in a balance, but that doesn't mean that you like his idea of the Jedi ending is just, it's about him specifically. It's like, I fucked up, so this thing needs to stop. Whereas like, no, you still need to exist and do all of this. And then the second lesson is just like about the Jedi being deified and stuff like that now that they're extinct and all that. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty true. I love that shot too of when he's like at the height of their power, they allowed Sidious to rise, defeat them, and create the Empire, and the camera just like zooms in on him. It's very Rian Johnson. We talked about this when we reviewed Glass Onion, I think, but like he's very playful with the camera. He's very creative in his shots and stuff like that. There is one part of the island that I wish it's a deleted scene that I wish wasn't deleted, and it's to do with Luke's third lesson. It's one of the longer scenes, so I'm guessing it was cut for time because The Last Jedi is a pretty long movie. But the Rey and Luke are talking up on the mountain, and then they see like boats going to the little caretaker village, and then Luke is just like, it's pirates, they're raiding, they're coming to like take all their stuff or whatever, and then Rey just immediately dashes off to go like save the day, and she gets there and it's just like the men of the caretaker society, and they're having like a fun little dance party, and then Rey's just like, the hell? And then Luke turns up later. He has a funny line where he's like, I was messing with you. I was gonna tell you, but you were just so fast. And it plays right into the scene where Luke goes and reconnects to the Force to talk to Leia, and then Rey is like all kind of pissy. And that's the reason why. It's like she's mad at him for fucking with her.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I was saying earlier, it's like, in that moment, Luke, I think he has a line in that scene where he's just like, in this moment, what would a Jedi do? Nothing. Like, the Jedi's, if you were a true Jedi, you're not going to go down there and protect the village. You're just going to, like, let the balance continue. And, like, that's it. Like, you wouldn't interfere here. Yeah. He's realized that, the Jedi need to end as they are or as they have been. Mm-hmm. Something new needs to come up to replace it.
Right. And his ultimate lesson, which is what Rey needs to learn in this movie, is just like, he's like, the Resistance doesn't need me. The Jedi don't need me. It's like, you are what we're supposed to be. It needs to be you. Like, you're, like, there's nothing I can do that you can't.
Yeah.
And then but also, like, on the subject of Luke and the island, like, the Yoda scene.
Yoda scene.
I love the Yoda scene so much. They actually found the original mold for the Yoda puppet, and I think they made a new puppet because the old one had like deteriorated over time. And they brought Frank Oz back.
Perfect dialogue, too.
Well, it's interesting too because Rian Johnson really wanted to shoot that scene on location, but they practically they had to think about they need somewhere for Frank Oz to be when he's puppeteering Yoda. So they ended up building this massive set, and it's a really impressive set. But it's it's really cool. And then you see the moment where Mark Hamill comes back on set and sees the Yoda puppet again for the first time, which is really great. And Frank Oz can just slip into the Yoda role on a dime and start speaking as him, which is great.
Of course, yeah. How could you ever forget that role? Oh, it's such a beautiful scene. Yeah. And then while we're on the island, too. I think that's when Kylo Ren and Rey's Force dyad really kind of comes into play, because they start being able to like communicate with each other while they're on the island. And I thought that was a pretty neat part of the movie. I'm really glad that they included that, because it's just like, it was kind of just like one of those moments where it just reimagined the Force for you as like an audience. Being able to explore another power, another thing within the Force, it's just really neat. And like, I think the dyad is really appropriate for this trilogy too, because like I think a lot of it is about what we've been talking about, this balance, the scales of the Force. Like, because at the end of Return of the Jedi, it feels like everything was just reset. Like, there's no more Sith, there's just Luke, and now there's something needs to come to rise to meet it. Kind of like how Snoke says of like, darkness rises, light to meet it, or something like that.
Yeah, I have a different interpretation than a lot of people about what balance in the Force means. I don't think like the Force being balanced means there's like equal size light and dark in terms of people. And I think part of the reason, like part of the what's fucked up about the prequel Jedi, and then all the Sith characters think this, but I think being at balance in the Force is like being at balance within yourself. Like recognizing that we all have light and dark in us, and finding peace, like inner peace with yourself, and acting on good. And so the like darkness rises and light to meet it. The light is the balance. It's not like a balance between good and evil. All Sith characters are dark side characters, and all of them are out of balance. None of them are in balance. Luke Skywalker at the end of this movie is in balance. He's at peace. He is victorious in part because of that.
I see.
That's my interpretation. I'm sure that'll make a lot of people very angry, but that's how I kind of see it. The dyad too is weird, because nothing is called a dyad until episode 9. In this one, it's like presented as Snoke bridging their minds together. I guess the dyad might be what JJ was initially going for in episode 7, because like Kylo Ren does like freak out when it's revealed that BB-8 is with like a girl, right? It's like, what girl? And so I'm guessing maybe he had like visions of a girl or something. I don't know. Doesn't really matter, because that's one element of The Force Awakens and this movie that's like, why did he react that way? Like, what's going on here? But I love the Force connection and all the scenes with it, because it's such a great idea.
Yeah.
And I believe Ryan said he wanted to develop their relationship throughout this movie, obviously. But like looked at the characters going into it when he was writing it, like, if they ever ran into each other, they would fight. They would try to kill each other.
Yep.
So I need to come up with a way where they have to talk to each other, where they but can't physically interact.
Definitely.
And so that's where this connection came from. Like, it's a very creative expression of the Force, and it did wonders for their characters and their dynamic.
For sure, yeah, because just like you're saying, I was thinking that exact same thing. Because at the end of Force Awakens, it's just like Rey completely despises Kylo. You know, she doesn't think that he can be really redeemed. And then you see that when in their first exchange here, she's just like, "You're a murderous snake. I hate you. You're terrible."
She tries to shoot him.
Yeah, she tries to shoot him. And then, when they reconnect on the ship, she's just like, "I'm gonna help you," basically. Like, I'm here to like try and like win you back to the light side. It's like her opinion completely changed because they were able to have all these interactions.
Exactly.
She was able to see the light.
Yeah, and I believe they filmed all of these dialogue scenes twice. Once in each location where each character is, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
So like they brought Adam Driver to wherever the set was that was replicating Skellig Michael Island, and then they brought Daisy Ridley to the like Imperial stuff, and just had them like off camera saying their lines to make the scenes feel very organic. And I think that really, really works. Also, it's like, I guess we need to talk about the like Reylo romance thing. I think in this movie, it's there. It's
definitely.
Especially in that scene in the elevator where she's like, "I'll help you." It's like, okay, that's a romantic delivery of that line. Like, she likes this guy.
There's something going on there. They got chemistry.
My problem with it more comes in the next movie, and we can talk about more there. But the reason I don't like any romance between them in episode 9 is because, like, to me, there's like a window for it to happen, and it's this movie, and it could have panned out if Kylo Ren had made different choices. But because he doesn't go with her at the end, he wants to do his own like thing and let everything burn. She moves on from him. She can't do that. And there's a scene at the very end of The Last Jedi where they still have their Force connection. It's after she's picked up the Resistance. Han is like holding the little fake Han Solo dice. Ben is holding, and he looks up, and Rey looks back at him. They make eye contact, and then she closes the door of the Millennium Falcon. It's like, to me, that is Rey saying, this is over. There was something here. This cannot continue because I'm better than this. I guess she changes her mind.
Yeah, but it's an interesting connection, and yeah, overall I agree with you. This was the movie for it to happen. The next movie, it feels a little bit more forced in. One thing I did want to talk about was Rose as a character, because I think that her character and the actress unfairly treated by fans, and they got so much undeserved hate for their role in this movie. Like, the actress, she did great. She did a fantastic job, and honestly, I think her character wasn't bad. I think that Rose was good overall. I don't think that she deserved to be like, because when they were writing episode 9, they were like, okay, that we got to write out this character. We got to diminish her role as much as possible, even though she had such a big role in episode 8. And then in episode 9, she's just kind of like in the background.
She's on screen for apparently 76 seconds.
Yeah, she is like there, but she has no presence. She does nothing. She is a supporting character, and that's honestly so frustrating because she's not a bad character at all. And I liked having her in this movie because honestly, for so long, it's just been like, yeah, I'm the best starfighter pilot in the galaxy. Like, come along with me. And then we have someone who's like, yeah, I just work in the mechanics all day.
Yeah.
I'm just like someone who does all the actual work so that other people can go off and be
right. Her sister was the hero, and her sister died. Like, it's we have to be honest. The hate for Rose comes from that she's Asian actress, and the character has a haircut that isn't like conventionally hot. That's why people hate Rose. And I guess she's like preachy to Finn about like the importance of like not being awful or something. But like there is no justifiable reason to hate this character. On rewatch, she does like nothing offensive in the entire movie. She's just like a good person who goes on an adventure with Finn.
Yes, she plays a very important role in this movie because she makes Finn change his entire perspective on the Resistance. Because when she meets him, he's ready to jump ship. He's like, I got to get out of here to save Rey. I got to get out of here so that way she can find me and reconnect and whatever. Because the Resistance is doomed, and I don't want her to come back and get captured or die or whatever. But Rose is able to kind of convince him through their travels and their adventures together that it's like, no, it's a collective fight. We need to come together for each other's freedom. Because in the last movie, I feel like Finn was like, his whole thing was running from the First Order, but then he's with his friends and he cares about his friends.
Yes.
And then in this movie, he's like, he cares about his friends, but by the end of this movie, he cares about the entire movement, the cause to fight back. Like, he's so ready to jump ship, completely changed by the end of the movie, and it's because of Rose. Because Rose contributed so much to that growth, even if I don't like on Crate how she like crashes her ship into him, but I think that is kind of that final step to kind of push him over and say, this is for all of us, even if I don't love that part.
Yeah, there's a little bit of messiness with the intersecting character arcs on Crate, and I cut the movie a little slack, and I cut Rian Johnson a little bit of slack for this because he's like trying to do a lot, and I think it's there's an intersection of Poe's arc and Finn's arc at this point that kind of contradicts each other, but I think what they're going for is that like they can't do it alone. They all have to have their own individual journeys, but it's only together that they come to the right conclusion, because like Finn is committed to the cause at that point. He's gonna like kill himself to blow up the thing or not blow up the thing. We're not sure. And then Rose like saves him by crashing into him and then kisses him. That's the only...
Yeah, that part gets a little messy, and I don't really love how they shoehorned that romance angle in there at the end.
Well, because their dynamic doesn't feel romantic. Yes. Because I remember when Kelly Marie Tran was cast, she was cast as a love interest for Finn, and I knew that going into the movie. Over the course of the movie, I forgot that because I just don't feel the romance there. But that being said, like, it didn't totally work for me, but it's something that could have been built upon in the next movie and made into something that really works. Instead, they completely abandoned that. But let's talk about Finn though a little bit. Let's start with your thing, and then I have a lot to talk about with Finn because I think people are totally wrong about his character in this movie.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm interested to hear about that because I think my thing with I like Finn. I like his arc overall. The thing that I wanted to talk about was Captain Phasma and Finn.
Yeah.
Because to me, it kind of felt like Phasma is like the Boba Fett archetype or something like that. Kind of this like third in command or whatever kind of...
a unique-looking armored person.
Yes. Unique-looking armored person who's got kind of like this antagonistic angle with this one person. Like Boba Fett with Han, Phasma with Finn here.
Yeah.
And I think the showdown that they have in this movie is pretty cool, but it's also a little underwhelming to a certain degree. Like it is kind of satisfying, but it's like the reason why I think it's underwhelming is that Phasma gets like no development in these two movies. Like she is just like, but I guess Boba Fett didn't really get any either. but like we know nothing about her except that she's like this intimidating captain of Finn's. And that's it. We get nothing else. We get like no other reason to really hate her except that just like, oh yeah, shoot the prisoners or the villagers at the start of this movie. Mm-hmm. And that's it. She doesn't really do anything else. So I think it would have been nice to get some more background on their relationship. Like maybe you could have like had a flashback where it's like back in training, Phasma beat the shit out of him or something like that, or just like was a terrible person to him, like as they were training him. Just give us anything to make us hate her a little bit more, or have like kind of this stronger emotional impact when they have this fight. I think it would have added to just an emotional victory for him.
Yeah.
And also I'm also a little torn on like whether I would have liked her character to come back in 9, because we'll get to it again. In episode 9, Finn has like nothing to do. So it would have been nice if she had like an antagonist like Phasma to go against in that movie. But I go back and forth on that because I'm like, this was a fine end to her. But then again, no development. Finn has nothing to do next movie.
Yeah, it would have been funny if they like pretended to kill her a second time and brought her back in the third movie, because it's never really explained how she got off of Starkiller Base at all.
Right, they were like, oh, where's the trash chute? We'll send her down the trash chute.
The trash compactor.
Like, where did she go?
Yeah.
How did she get out of there?
But on Finn's storyline, there are a couple things that people always say about Finn, specifically pointing out this movie, because people love Finn in The Force Awakens, right? He's like one of the co-leads, and then people always say it's like Finn gets totally sidelined and given a side quest in The Last Jedi, and he just has nothing to do, and he's just along for the ride. And I find that very confusing because, one, you already alluded to it with talk about Rose. Rose is the like angel on Finn's shoulder, and the devil on Finn's shoulder is DJ, Benicio del Toro's character, the backup safecracker that they get. What do they call it? Safecracker? Whatever, doesn't matter. The thing about like the character level of Finn is that, like you said earlier, by the end of The Force Awakens, like Finn is a good guy, right? But if you're attentive, as Rian Johnson, I think, is as a writer, you would notice like Finn doesn't behave like a Resistance member. He wants to help Rey.
Yes.
He goes to Starkiller Base with Han and like tells the Resistance to go there without a plan to keep them alive.
Yep.
Like he does not know how to get them going. He just wants to get Rey, and that's what he says. So he's not a rebel yet. So his arc in this movie is about recognizing the difference between just abstaining from evil and actively doing good, because those are not the same thing. And he's tempted by DJ throughout this movie. He's given evidence for like, just don't get involved. This doesn't concern you. You can just walk away.
It's all a machine, partner. Live free. Don't join.
Don't join. And DJ's argument is like, oh, look, these rich people, like, they sell weapons to the bad guys and the good. They're all complicit, basically. It's like everybody's just out for themselves. You should be, too. Yeah. And a lot of people, I think, took that at face value. They're like, they thought the message of the movie was just a simple anti-war message, which there is elements of that, but it's like, nah, man, when they're fascists, like, running around and doing horrible shit, you have to fight them. Just because like the good guys have some marks on them as well doesn't mean they aren't still the good guys. And Finn's arc is about becoming rebel scum, which is why that fight against Phasma is so satisfying. And then,
I see.
And one thing, and John Boyega doesn't like this movie either. He's said multiple times he's not a fucking fan of this. And he thinks his character was sidelined in a lot of ways. But I find it strange because, like, the movie where he's really sidelined is Episode 9. He has nothing to do in that film. And maybe there's something where, like, JJ gave him the opportunity in Episode 7, and so he's grateful for that. But, like, and you know, he's entitled to his perspective. He was on set. He had an experience. I can't, like, fight against that. He feels the way he feels. I just think it's weird that this is the movie everybody focuses on. Because, like, the Canto Bight stuff is not a side quest. Finn drives more of this movie's plot than Rey does. Objectively speaking.
Yes.
Rey maybe has the more interesting material, but Finn, like, think about it. The entire Battle of Crate, everything that happens, Luke sacrificing himself and inspiring the galaxy and all that stuff, none of that happens if it isn't for Finn. Because the only reason that battle happens at all is because of Finn and Poe and Rose's plan to go get the safecracker, which they fail to do, and they get DJ instead, and then he overhears Poe telling Finn about the plan with the transports to get down to Crate, and then he tells the First Order, which is how they discover them.
Yep.
And that leads to the Holdo maneuver thing, that leads to the whole Battle of Crate, and it's like, how can you say that he's not on the, like, main story of this movie when he drives most of the plot?
Yeah, he's so integral to it. Like, without him, nothing would have happened.
I also, another hot take, I suppose, like, I like the Canto Bight stuff. The casino planet is awesome.
That's neat.
They built a massive set for that casino. I love all the little creatures and the costuming here.
It's awesome.
There's that great shot going over all the tables. The one thing I don't like about it is they don't dress up in fancy clothes to be in disguise. Yep. And I don't know why, because in behind the scenes stuff you can see that it must have been a budget thing, because they were doing, like, concept art for their outfits for the whole sequence. And they were gonna make it, and I guess I don't know why they didn't. But it is funny too, they get caught because of a parking violation.
Yeah, that is silly. I like that bit. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I like the cut of, like, Rose. She's like, it's a town run by the worst people in the galaxy. And, like, you're thinking, like, Obi-Wan saying, you know, the most wretched hive of scum and villainy. Yeah. And then we go to Mos Eisley, where it's like all the, you know, the outcasts and the smugglers and the pirates and stuff. And then it cuts to rich people. Yeah. It's great.
Because they are the worst. They are the worst.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about Poe and Holdo a little bit. So, like, Poe's arc, I think Poe needed a lot in this movie because initially I think the plan was that he would die in The Force Awakens in the TIE Fighter crash, and then Oscar Isaac didn't really want to do that because I think he'd had a couple roles where he looks like he's going to be a big character and then dies early on. Yeah. And, like, from a career perspective, if you keep doing that, it probably just doesn't look good. Yeah. And so JJ, you know, reworked it and made it work so he didn't die. Good move. I think that was smart. But because of that, Poe doesn't get a lot of material in the first movie. So I think giving him more in this one was really smart, and his arc is about learning to not just be a pilot, but be a leader. Leia is, like, grooming him to take command of the Resistance. And I really, really enjoy this. I enjoy the passing of the torch moment on Crate from her as well. But Leia is taken out of the picture for a lot of the movie, right? She has the cockpit, or the bridge gets shot, and she flies out in space.
Which is a silly sequence, I'll admit.
Yeah, the one shot I have a problem with is the like wide shot of the, like, Mary Poppins hand.
Yeah, that bit's a little weird.
But it does have the visual foreshadowing of she flies through the hologram of Snoke's ship, right where the Holdo maneuver does later on, which is pretty fun. So Leia survives being in space for a few minutes, right? Obviously, in the real world, you would die instantly. But I've said this in my other videos on this, but I think I have a theory. And my theory is that space in Star Wars is just not as cold as our space because, and I have this theory because of Empire Strikes Back. In my old video, I did a thing where I refuted basically everybody's like main issues with The Last Jedi using only The Empire Strikes Back as my evidence because that's the film that everybody loves across the board. And my reasoning for this theory is that in Empire, when they're in the asteroid field, they have to like go deal with the Minox or whatever, right? Han and Leia waltz out of the Falcon in nothing but their little breather masks. And it's like, yes, we know they're in the belly of the worm, right? And so it's probably warmer and has its own atmosphere and all that shit. But you know who doesn't know that? Han and Leia. So as far as they know, they just walked out into space on an asteroid with just their regular clothes on. So
they're fine.
And they were fine because they were in the worm, but they anticipated being fine.
Yeah, they didn't know where they were.
Exactly. So if they would do that, then I hypothesize that Leia could survive out in space for a little bit. And I also love the wide shot is goofy, but the one shot of like her hand where it kind of, you know, flutters like as she's connecting with the Force. That's a great shot. But yeah, Leia demotes Poe, and then Poe now has to deal with Vice Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern. And
Laura Dern ruined Star Wars.
Character thoroughly undeserving of the hate she received.
Seriously, though.
And I think most people really don't get the different ways that she works. She is an antagonist, structurally speaking. Poe is the protagonist of this storyline. Holdo is the antagonist. Not the villain, the antagonist. Those are different things.
Yes.
We are in Poe's point of view, right? We're meant to be kind of aligned with him. He's our guy. And so we don't really like her because they don't see eye to eye, and she kind of like talks down to him in a little bit. And then she's also dressed like someone out of the Capitol in the Hunger Games. Like she has that purple dress, she's got the purple hair, and your brain should immediately go social elite. She looks like a person who would be at Canto Bight, right? And that immediately should make you think maybe some alignment with the First Order there. Maybe we shouldn't trust her. That shit's intentional. She looks like that for a reason. It's like, why the purple hair? It's so that you don't trust her. It's off-putting for this character who's dressed in like a regal gown and has very colorful hair to be here.
Yep.
It's on purpose. Like the whole, like, and we get her, and then we get the like worst people in the galaxy line from Rose about and maybe in the opposite order. Maybe we've already had that scene, so we're already on that wavelength. They want us in Poe's point of view, similar to how what they did with Luke, getting us in Rey's point of view. This is them getting us in Poe's point of view. We don't trust her. We don't like her, right? I like this character a lot. I like that she has this long history with Leia that's alluded to. That they've obviously and I think there's a book where like they fought in the rebellion together when they were teenagers, basically. Like they go way back. But I love this thing of her secretly seeing the bigger picture and just trying to keep the resistance alive. Like was like where the spark to light the fire or whatever. And she was always intending to sacrifice herself. Yeah. She was never gonna leave the ship. But I do think she did fuck up. And I don't understand why other defenders of The Last Jedi like deny that. The movie is about failure. That includes her too. Yes. Because she had pretty decent reasons for not trusting Poe after the opening. And like Poe does not handle this situation very well with her either. But like she absolutely should have trusted him, because we see on the transport later on when Leia outlines what they're doing to Poe, he's immediately on board. He's like, oh, that could work.
Yeah, it's like such a convoluted thing where she's like, why aren't you telling everybody? Who are you being selective about this? Like, yeah, there's not very good reasoning.
Well, I think the reasoning is she doesn't know him, and she's probably like, if the First Order finds out what they're doing, all the transports are dead. And she's keeping the information close to the vest because, and like the other officers know, they're all loading up the transports. Like so it's like she is just keeping, information compartmentalized in case there's a leak. That's what she's doing. But if she and Poe had been able to see eye to eye, a lot of people would have survived. Yeah. But, it leads to the Holdo maneuver thing, which is so cool.
I love it.
Our theater, I remember we saw this opening day, and dead silent. It's such a cool looking shot. The sound is amazing.
It's so cool. I love that. I love that bit. And I mean, it feels like a 1 in a million shot too. You know, it's like, because I remember people complaining about that. It's a 1 in a million shot.
Yeah, I mean, and the real reason is because they didn't think about it when writing those movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you're a fucking adult. You should be able to accept that and move on with your life. But also like in universe, yeah, it's probably logistically incredibly difficult because when I think the way Lightspeed works is like you slip into like a wormhole or something. I mean that's warp speed in Star Trek. I don't know, but it's like you kind of blink out of existence. So if you don't time it perfectly and position yourself perfectly, you won't hit the necessary speed at the right time to make impact before you disappear out of the physical space. So it is like, and then they kind of like make a note of that in Rise of Skywalker. They're like, oh, there's a 1 in a million thing. It's like, all right, you don't need to explain it to these people. Just like let them be mad. They're never going to be happy anyway. But like we've touched on it now, but let's talk about failure. Major theme of this movie.
Big theme.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to ignore that when they're angry about this movie, but that's what this all is about. I mean, everyone fails to some degree. Like the Resistance has this gradual failure, getting away from the First Order. The Canto Bite sequence when they're trying to get the code breaker to help out, and that's a failure. And then they get on the ship, and then that's a failure. And Luke failed Ben.
Rey failed to bring Ben back.
Yes, Rey failed to bring Ben back. Rey failed to bring Luke back initially. Hux fails. Kylo fails. At the end of...
fails.
Yeah, like there's so many failures. Everyone fails. And it's because, like Yoda says in this movie, failure is the greatest teacher. But everyone just seems to ignore this on-the-nose lesson. But it's such a prevalent theme, and it's so important to the story because that's what failure is, where you learn. It's the experiences that you get along the way that teach you what you need to know.
Yeah, and it's a very true thing as well. It's like if you find someone who's never substantially failed in any way, it's like you can safely assume that person doesn't really know all that much. Because the less like the greatest teacher failure is. It's like it gives you an opportunity to learn and do better the next time.
Yes.
Right? And I love the scene of Yoda and Luke talking about it, where it's just like, and Yoda's basically like, look, this is one of the most important things you can pass on. And I also, going back to that scene, I love the line, it's like, we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. I think it's a great sentiment, and it's so true because like Luke, ultimately by the end of the original trilogy, he's a better Jedi than Obi-Wan was, than Yoda was, and anyone else, because the advice they give him is like, dude, you gotta kill Vader. You gotta kill Vader and the Emperor. That's what you gotta do. And then he rejects that, and he wins because of it. Like he's wiser than them, and then now Rey has the opportunity to do the same and surpass Luke in certain ways. What is it? A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. It's like all the mistakes of the past are now lessons Rey can learn from to not make the same ones. Everyone in the story like fails or has failed, right? And then all of them, except for Kylo Ren, are able to learn from their failure and use it as a springboard to move forward. And that ties into something that is not a theme of this movie, which is let the past die. That is not what the movie is saying. That is a thing that two characters, Luke and Kylo Ren specifically, believe. Luke learns the lesson throughout the movie that, like, while you have to move on from the past, you can't leave it behind. Like, it's a part of you, and you need to it can provide lessons.
Right? You can accept it and learn from it.
Kylo does not learn a similar lesson. He wants to let the past die. He wants to kill the past. And then at the end of the movie, the two characters face off in a duel. Luke having learned the lesson that he needs to, and Kylo Ren not having learned the lesson, still thinking you need to like let the past die. So the two conflicting ideologies are paired up in a fight, and Luke wins. So the movie is not telling you let the past die. It's saying if you do that, you are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Yes.
Like, Kylo Ren could have literally won the war on Crate, but instead of just having his army advance and, physically move forward, he chooses instead to focus on literally killing someone from his past.
I want every gun we have to fire on that man.
and that allows the Resistance to escape.
Yeah, it's such a colossal failure on his part. You're totally right. It's not about that. It's about, learning from your past and your failures. And I really like that battle on Crate, too. I think that's a really cool sequence. Just the aesthetics of it are really neat, and then just how outmatched they are against.
Yeah, it was like 10 little speeders.
Yeah, against like these ginormous walkers.
You get the red dust flying up, everything. It's very visually stunning. And I also love it's just like The Last Stand, right? I love when they're in the base, they're setting up all the computer equipment that's been there since the days of the rebellion. It's now or never. Like, if you're out there, come help now. And then nobody fucking comes because they're so afraid. Go back a little bit to the throne room sequence, and
that was a lot of fun.
And Snoke's role in this movie and the trilogy overall. So people got bent out of shape about this too, because they're like, well, you killed the main villain in episode 8. What are they going to do in episode 9? And I don't really understand why people are upset about this, because what Kylo Ren does to Snoke by killing him is what the Sith are supposed to do, right? The idea is there's one to hold the power and one to crave it, right? And then eventually the apprentice will kill the master and then become the master themselves. We've never seen that before. I think it's cool when we see things that are talked about that we've never seen before. And I know before someone says it, Kylo Ren and Snoke are not Sith, but can you tell me what they are? What's the difference? They're for all intents and purposes, they're the same thing. I think it was so cool that we see that. What I didn't understand was that people couldn't get their minds around. It wasn't that Rian Johnson killed the trilogy's main villain in killing Snoke. It's that he revealed the trilogy's main villain was Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren is taking his place now. Yeah. He's stepping into his role. It's a reveal, not a subversion.
Yeah.
And which I think is fine too, because I have no problems with Snoke as a character. But he's not as interesting as Kylo Ren. He's a big monster man who's evil because he loves it. And Kylo Ren is a more nuanced character. And I was kind of excited to see him become Supreme Leader, a job that he did not want. He wanted to build something else, and now he's stuck leading this organization with a guy he hates.
Yeah. It's shit.
Yeah. But I also want to talk about my favorite part of this movie, which is going to make me very sad when we talk about our next movie. And it's Rey from Nowhere. Rey, having no significant parentage, was a perfect decision. If we think about when you're writing a character, you want to think about their want versus their need, right? And Rey grew up abandoned on a desert by herself, scavenging. She wants her parents to be someone important. She even says in The Force Awakens, when BB-8's talking about how he's on a secret mission or whatever he says, she's like,
classified, really? Me too. Big secret.
I'm hidden. Implying I'm hidden here. I'm here for some reason. Because that's what she wants to believe. If they were important, her parents, and they hid her on Jakku for some reason, that would make all of her hardship worth it. It would mean something. Deep down, in this movie confirms it, she knows. She knows they're not. And what she needs, her want, is to matter because of where she comes from. But her need is to recognize that she needs to make something of herself. And be Rey based on what she does. Yeah. You see her refusal to do so in her scenes with Luke, especially after the little fight after the conversation with Kylo Ren, which is a great scene in and of itself, by the way. And also, that when Luke comes into the hut and all the rocks fly back,
that's so great.
That was a practical effect.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's really cool. But she never for a moment considers that she's the hero the Resistance needs, the future the Jedi need, or anything like that. When she can sense light in Kylo Ren, her first instinct is this could be how we win. We change the tide. We bring him back. And then when Luke is that's not going to work, man, what does she do? She holds the lightsaber out to him. She's like, okay, then it's you. Then come back. And he doesn't. But the reality is that it's her. And she needs to step into the forefront as Rey. Just Rey. And we'll come back to that in the episode 9 discussion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really like that her parents in this movie is just nobody. That's all. And I like the idea of her coming from nowhere and just being a brand new person.
Yeah.
We don't need a family resemblance or a lineage or anything like that.
And if you think back to like how the Jedi always were, it's like they were just random people that the Jedi went and picked up. They like it's the idea of it being like a hereditary or lineage based thing. It's like that only comes from like Luke being Vader's son. Happened one time in significant like it doesn't all need to be that way. And I just and it ties in with the little broom kid too on Canto Bight, because at the end of the movie, right, you get he's talking about the story of like what Luke did on Crate, and then he just like uses the Force to grab the little broom and starts sweeping, and then he turns the broom up like a sword to the stars, and it's just like it's such a powerful sentiment, because it's like no, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, it's what you do. It's what you do, and anyone can be a hero. Anyone can fight the good fight and help other people. And another frustrating thing, I get so frustrated with Star Wars fans because people saw that, and then the theory crafting, of course, started. It's like, so is Rey going to train the Broom Kid in Episode 9? Is he going to be her apprentice next? It's like, it's a thematic.
Yeah.
It's thematic. Stop it.
Yeah, like come on, guys. You're smarter than this, maybe.
Yeah. But I love and Kylo Ren like calls her out needing. It's like you're looking for them everywhere. Like you want Han to be your dad, you want Luke to be your dad. And it's like, no, you don't get that. You don't get to have that meaning come from identity. You have to make it yourself.
Exactly, I like that.
Did we talk about the throne room fight at all? I thought we had notes about it.
Like just very briefly, we just said, yeah, it's cool. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great fight. I loved the music swelling as the lightsaber, as Rey catches the lightsaber, is such an amazing moment.
It's really, it's awesome.
And it's a brutal fight too. I love how like it's kind of gruesome by Star Wars standards, I guess. Like they slice through people in pretty impactful ways. Yeah, I also love when she tosses them the lightsaber
it's so great. It's so great.
But let's talk about Luke versus Kylo Ren and Luke's ultimate sacrifice. So I love the final showdown of this movie. It comes at the like all hope is lost, nobody's coming.
Yes.
And then Luke turns up and he looks different.
He does. Yeah.
He does look different. And I remember in the theater being like, I was trying to figure out like, did he just like clean up before he left?
Yeah, exactly. Like he cleaned up. Like what is it? But then you see that he's got the same lightsaber as people remember him having, and it's like you don't have that lightsaber.
Yeah, but yeah, and you see all these things that's like you should like something is up. You know something's up.
Something's off here.
And I mean the music is great, obviously. And then when they're doing their showdown, you have those big drums. While they're squaring off like a samurai duel. Another thing people get fucking upset about, and I don't understand why. Like Luke projects himself halfway across the galaxy to do this like epic showdown, right? Yeah. And I see people wish that he'd actually show up physically, but I think that they just aren't correct on that because one, he can't get there. He sunk the X-wing, and one of the wings is the door for his little hut. Something the next movie.
Yes, yeah.
And two, he's putting on a show. It's a spectacle, and he is intentionally like appearing and moving in a way that he no longer probably can physically, or maybe never even could, because he does a lot of little weird, moves, like tricky shit. Because he's trying to, he's painting a picture. He's making a story that will inspire people to fight, and I love that like he's doing the very thing that he sarcastically said to Rey at the beginning. It's like, what, you think I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order? And it's like, yeah, you did it.
That's exactly what you did.
Yeah, but like it's showmanship. That's why he does a little flick. I think people misinterpret it, including me at the time, when Kylo Ren's like, "Have you come to save my soul?" And he's just like, no. I thought that was him like giving up on Ben entirely, but I think what it really is just like, no, I'm not here for you right now.
Yeah, that's not my purpose.
Yeah, my purpose is to make sure they get out. You can come later. And I love the reveal is so perfect too, because like it gives you all the information you need. When he slides his foot, he doesn't move the dirt at all.
That's true.
And then, but when it's Kylo Ren realizes he's fucked up so bad when he
No! Like just like a spoiled child.
Yeah. And then I was disappointed that like the promise of see you around kid is not really fulfilled in episode 9, because it's like I kind of would have liked to see the two of them interact throughout that movie, but I like Luke and Leia's scene together as well. I think it's very touching.
Yeah. I like that too, and I like that the resistance gets away at the end. It's a very creative way to do it too.
Yeah. Well, and then there's like Rey lifts rocks, which is the thing she said at the beginning. Like it's cute.
There's lots of good poetic moments.
Yeah, and then also just a miscellaneous thing. I love the shot of Leia looking out over Crate, like where her.
That was very pretty.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's a great ending, great movie, supremely underrated, and did not deserve any of the hate that it has received.
No, it's just weird, and it's such a like, even if you don't love the story, which I think the things people hate about this story are odd. I think the way people responded to Luke specifically is very frustrating, because it directly led to how Luke is being written now in the TV stuff. And I think a lot of people don't see the Star Wars characters they grew up with as characters who can grow and change. I think they desire them to be action figures.
Yeah, static figures.
Figures that you like play around with on your floor. And that is essentially what Luke Skywalker is in the TV shows now, and it's very frustrating to me. He's a digital action figure, not even fully played by a human being anymore. And it's like, I just can't get on board with that. Like, and people didn't respond positively to like another actor playing Han either the year after this movie came out, and it's like, it sucks because we're having all these TV show stories like in an era where you could have another guy play Luke. You could have Alden Ehrenreich playing Han. You could have Billy Lord playing Leia or something. And it's like but now those characters are going to be fully CGI. They're going to be CGI meat puppets, and it's just very depressing.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I love the ending sentiment on the Falcon too, where it's just like there are like 15 of them left in the Resistance, and Rey is like, how do we rebuild from this? Like we have everything we need. We got it. With like we have the spark. We'll make it to tomorrow, and then we'll make it to the next day, and people will join us. And you also have Rey and Poe meeting for the first time.
Yeah, I like that.
And I will talk about it more in the Rise of Skywalker section about the main trio of this trilogy. But I think the way they interact there, it made me feel like, oh, they're setting up a thing for them to be like maybe a romantic pairing in the next movie.
Yeah.
Just the way Poe kind of like smiles when he looks at her and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that seems like a thing they're gonna do, and it seems like a good way to develop their relationship because they haven't been on screen together.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good closing sentiment because he's just like, I'm Rey, and he's like, I know.
Yeah.
It's like she's already got this kind of mythos. Right?
Yeah, and it ties in with her character arc so nicely because it's like, you don't need to be from anywhere. You're you, and you are worth knowing about.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. So true.
Any other thoughts on The Last Jedi?
Now let's get on to the last one.
You feel like you're working on something bigger than yourself. You want to respect what's come before, working towards that blend of legacy and new. We strive to have a great balance of those two things.
Last film.
Yeah, talking about Rise of Skywalker, the last one. Got mixed feelings on it, for sure. And I'm going to say something that might be controversial, but I had a better time rewatching this movie than I expected. Like, I've only seen it that one time in the theaters, and I said, I'm never going to watch this again. Then on the rewatch, I'm like, okay, I kind of like this a little bit better. And I think for me, the reason is that I just kind of find this movie to be more campy and silly now. But I'm not saying that this movie's good by any means. I think there's a lot of problems with it. There's lots of missed opportunities. I have issues with Palpatine's return. I have issues with the third act. There's lots of character decisions that I disagree with. But in general, I think that there are some moments throughout the movie that, or maybe it's just the meme culture, maybe it's just pop culture and stuff like that. But they just feel campy to me. And even though they're stupid and silly, I kind of like enjoyed them a little bit more now just because of that. Like the lines like somehow Palpatine returned, or or they fly now. Like those lines are like they're so bad that they're kind of good now.
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of got like memeified in a similar way that Revenge of the Sith did. Like people have a lot more affection for Revenge of the Sith via the memes.
Yeah.
And I don't even mind the "they fly now" part, but the somehow Palpatine return, you see Oscar Isaac's expression, and it's just like, yeah, he's not on board with this.
And like when Kylo gets to Exegol and at the start, and like Palpatine's just general aesthetics and vibes, and like that whole kind of dark atmosphere, I'm like, this is so campy to me now. And maybe that's just me, but like, kind of like how it happened with like some of the prequels. Like especially Phantom Menace, because I think that Episode 1 is not a very good movie, but there's lots of people today who love that movie.
Yeah.
And I think that eventually, it's not going to be like immediate, but eventually I think Episode 9 will have kind of that similar revival among fans. Maybe. That's my guess. But man, when I first saw this in theaters, like, and that opening title crawl started, I was just like, oh no. Like I had such high hopes going in, and then immediately I was like, oh, this doesn't bode well.
Yeah, so this is the only one of the 3 films that I, until this project, had not rewatched since the theater. Mm-hmm. I saw it a couple times in theaters because I was seeing it with different people, like I did with all these, but I had a similar oh no experience to you, because my thought going into this movie was, I'm not gonna like it as much as Last Jedi. I'm okay with that as long as it's kind of a satisfying conclusion. And I remember saying to lots of people, I just need the movie to not do 2 things. Don't physically resurrect the Emperor, and don't change Rey's lineage. And I knew within 5 minutes that it was doing both of them. So my mindset at that point was, okay, fine. Show me what you got. Like, what's this gonna be? And I'll say, for a good chunk of the early movie, like, I had a decent time. Sure. And then things go very sharply downhill. And I remember for the longest time I said, and I still believe this in a lot of ways, but I talked about this movie as being a cowardly movie. It felt like a panicked reaction to the backlash of the previous movie in a lot of ways, and it still does. But having seen the behind-the-scenes documentary now, it's interesting because it's like, it was very clearly made with love by a lot of people, and there's incredible craftsmanship on display across multiple departments. And now I'm in a weird situation where, like, I borderline hate this movie that thousands of people, like, put their heart and soul into, and I can see that. And it's a really weird feeling. But the movie does some things that I just really can't find it in myself to forgive. One of the things that I think is a problem is, we talked earlier about how there are like 2 ways they could have gone about this trilogy. Like, one, plan it all out and ahead of time, or sort of give the different voices in each film. And I think the problem here, and the reason the trilogy ultimately doesn't stick the landing, is The Rise of Skywalker is bad improv. For like clarity on what I mean by that, in improv comedy, you have like a scene partner, and you may set something up as person 1, and then your scene partner may take that and go in a totally different direction. And your job as a good scene partner is to yes and. You are not meant to contradict things that came before. You're meant to embrace the new direction and find your feet with that. And then you build something special and fun through that. This movie, Abrams and Terrio just had a really hard time yes-anding The Last Jedi, I think. And that is sort of at the core of why the trilogy overall starts to fall apart because of this movie.
Yeah, I definitely see that, because you're totally right. Then, going into this movie, it's like, okay, what do I have to work with? Yeah. At a certain point.
But, like, you have Kylo Ren and Hux.
Yeah, you got
this. That's like, and the weird decision is, like, I mean, they redeemed Kylo Ren, which is probably where that was always going to go. Yeah. That's fair. But then they kill off Hux very unceremoniously and relatively early on in the movie, and replace him with another guy. So you go into the back half of this movie, and the heroes are facing off against the Emperor, who wasn't present for the first 2/3 of the trilogy, and Allegiant General Pride, played by Richard E. Grant. He's great. But it's like, okay, so one of the villains is dead, the other's not a villain anymore, and they're facing off against guys that they don't really know or have any relationship with.
Yeah. It's clumsy.
Yes.
It's very clumsy and clunky, and like I think we do need to talk about the Duel of Fate script too, because like there was that script that came out. I don't know all the details. I'd never read it all the way through, but I got the broad strokes, and there are some things in there that I feel like would have been better.
Do you want to explain what that is first?
I could try.
Or I can't. So basically, like we mentioned earlier, that Colin Trevorrow was initially making episode 9. Okay. Duel of the Fates was the script for his version of the movie. The movie was significantly reworked when J.J. Abrams came back and wrote a new version with Chris Terrio. And so Duel of the Fates was like Mach 1 of episode 9 that never saw the light of day, except that the screenplay, the first draft of the screenplay, that I believe never got revised, leaked online.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But I mean, there's like some elements from that script or screenplay, I guess, that I think would have been better. Like Finn has a whole story arc in that screenplay where he organizes a grassroots rebellion among like the First Order or like on
Coruscant, I think,
something like that. But it's like he brings about like all these new rebels to the cause, like very organically and naturally, and it's like that is the perfect arc for him. Like, and then they just don't do that. So yeah, and I think that there's like some other elements too that could have been interesting, like returning to Coruscant would have been cool. Even just going back there at that time would have been, I think, really cool. Yeah. After not seeing it in the OG trilogy and being so many movies removed, like just going back there could have been cool, I think. And then I think like the climax of the film, but like I don't fully remember everything from the Duel of Fates. So
on Duel of Fates, I have read the screenplay in its entirety. It's bad, but in fairness, it's a first draft. Like a lot of people say it's better than The Rise of Skywalker, and I would say it's more ambitious than The Rise of Skywalker. It strives more to be just the final film of the sequel trilogy than Rise of Skywalker does. I would say though, aside from Finn, no one else gets good shit in that movie, in that screenplay, in my opinion. Some people like it, but I will say with Finn, you're right, that him leading an insurrection of stormtroopers specifically is the perfect like capper to his 3-movie arc. Because so many people like always talk about how like Finn got robbed because he never became a Jedi, and I don't understand that, because nothing in his arc in the first 2 movies has fucking anything to do with being a Jedi, other than he holds a lightsaber. Yeah. In fairness, the marketing for The Force Awakens makes it look like he's going to be a Jedi, and I do get the sense that John Boyega maybe wanted him to be a Jedi, but Finn's arc is about becoming rebel scum, and the great culmination of that is he could inspire other people to follow in his footsteps and lead a defection from the First Order. And it's so weird in Rise of Skywalker because there are stormtroopers who left the First Order, and that would be a perfect opportunity to like tie in that good idea from this original screenplay. But for whatever reason, they're completely disconnected from anything Finn's ever done. They don't know who he is. It's like they could have at least been inspired by him.
Yeah, well, and like it's such an obvious win, It's so easy. It's just like, just bring him in there.
But it's very odd. But Duel of the Fates is weird. I mean, it does do a romance between Rey and Poe, which is something that seemed like was kind of being set up at the end of The Last Jedi. But then the climax of the movie is like this thing where Rey and Kylo Ren fight on Mortis from the Clone Wars. Like Kylo Ren has this like odyssey of flashbacks where he talks to Han at one point, and I don't remember all of it, but he blinds Rey, dies or doesn't die. I don't remember. Kylo Ren dies. There's no redemption for Kylo Ren in this one. I think,
okay, that's right.
Or maybe there is at the very last second. Luke is much more involved. He like catches Kylo Ren's lightsaber blade. Then Finn and Rose make a refuge for Force-sensitive children, and Rey shows up at the end, like first draft.
Yeah,
in fairness, first draft. But I think, aside from being bad improv, one of the main issues that I think like rots the core of this movie is, not rots the core, that's kind of a shitty way to say that, but the Skywalker legacy, quote unquote, and the Skywalker saga. So the Skywalker saga, we'll start with that, because I think it's a baffling thing to me. To me, what the Skywalker saga means is it's a branding term to sell a 9-film box set. Because like a lot of people in the fandom space always talk about it's like it's this one story spanning multiple generations, and this is wrapping up all 9 films. And I was always like, what are you talking about? Yeah. The original trilogy is a complete story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's done. The prequel trilogy is a complete story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's done. You don't need to wrap up those 2 stories. They are wrapped up. All you needed to do with episode 9 was wrap up the story you were telling. And when J.J. Abrams was talking about how it like brings all 9 films, like it feels like an end to all of them, I'm like, I thought it would be like they go to Coruscant, and that's how it ties in with the other trilogies or something like that. Not we resurrected the fucking Emperor and stuff like that. So it was just very confusing, and I think that's part of the problem is they felt the pressure to like make a climax for a 9-film story that was really 3 separate stories with characters that carry over in between.
Yeah.
And then the Skywalker legacy, I think, is something that they got too caught up in the weight and emotion the fans have and the reverence for the Skywalkers and the story and stuff like that. And in so doing, they forgot to focus on telling the story. There are moments in this movie, which we'll talk about, that feel very much like that's not for the character's benefit. That's for me. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, a big part of the problem.
Yeah. There's plenty to go in those problems.
But we're gonna do a compliment sandwich for Rise of Skywalker. So I'm gonna start off with some nice things here. I like the costumes, especially Poe's and Finn's. I think they finally have a look for each of them. Poe looks very much like a sort of his own offshoot of like an Indiana Jones, Rick O'Connell style adventurer guy, which I think is a really cool look. And then Finn just has that really like neat vest and like blue pants and whatever. I also really enjoy the Pisana sequence, the desert planet stuff. I think that's when the movie is at its best. The festival and all the little creatures there are fantastic. Those were all like costumed actors. I think they filmed that in Jordan as well. And there's like a whole section of the documentary talking about like the costumes and like figuring out the creature look. And the area of Jordan was very remote, so it was really hard to get to, especially like that many extras and film equipment and all that stuff. So that part is really great. The speeder chase is fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like Rey's little flip to cut the TIE fighter is pretty neat.
I like that. Yep.
Also, not the movie, but I don't even like this movie, but that trailer, the trailer is amazing.
The trailer's great.
I also, and this is a hot take, but I like the light speed skipping sequence.
I like it too.
I think it's very fun and it's new. I don't, and people say it like breaks lore because of what Han said in the original movie, but I don't think it does. Han said that like he's taking his time because like without the precise calculations you can you know. And I think this is showcasing why you need the precise calculations, because they almost run into a whole lot of shit. They almost die multiple times, but I think it works. This is the first part of this trilogy really where it starts to feel like it has some real scale, like there's a war going on. I like that stuff. I think it's pretty fun. And
I mean, there are some other good things. We'll close with that for the compliment sandwich, because there's some other things that we need to talk about. Some other issues. Poe's backstory, like they kind of have this subplot in a way where they go to Kajimi because they need to find Babu Freak to get into C-3PO's brain so that way they can get the Sith code.
Yeah, because he can speak Sith, but he's not allowed to with his programming, so they have to reboot his brain.
You got to reboot his brain and wipe all his memories, whatever, which has no consequences because then he later gets his memories back. Whatever.
He gives them back.
It's fine. But I think that we meet this character from Poe's past, this female character, and it kind of feels like this is the romantic interest. And we learned that he was like a spice runner in his past life and things like that.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that, I like this character overall because she provides some unique insight to Poe, kind of helped build out his character a little bit. But I would have liked to see her integrated more into the plot.
This new trilogy overall is very like romance-less and sexless.
It's flirty. That's it.
At best,
It's flirty, and then it's like, we're not going to do anything with it. But I will say that character, I think her helmet design is fucking stupid.
I like her costume. I disagree.
That's fine. To me, I'm just like, when I look at it, I'm like, that looks like a half-finished Alien design. Like, Alien. Like,
yeah, So I think I don't really understand the decision to give Poe this backstory as a spice runner.
Sure.
From the lore I understand, it's like his parents were in the rebellion, and he seems like he's been like a lifelong sort of Republic military guy.
Yeah.
And it seems out of character and pretty random that he was like a spice runner at one point, and it feels like an attempt to make him more like Han Solo when that isn't who Poe is. So I don't really get that.
Yeah.
I do think the film, after the light speed skipping sequence, I think the film does a really great job initially at building up like a dynamic between Poe and Rey. They're like, because he's not taking care of Falcon in the same way she would, because she has like a reverence and like love for Han and wants to take care of his stuff.
Yeah.
Poe doesn't have that same regard for the ship, which I think is interesting. Their bickering felt very Han and Leia-ish to me, even though like we have the Finn Poe like in the hallway in Episode 8. This felt like that argumentative dynamic at the start of Empire, which I thought was gonna be some sort of like romance or dynamic that just doesn't exist in the rest of the film at all. It's like here, and I like the frustration that they have with each other. It's nice, and then they never do literally anything with it, which is kind of weird. Another thing too, just about back to the Pisana arc that I like overall like, but one thing I think is very strange about it is Rey accidentally like uses lightning and seemingly blows up Chewie. She doesn't. He's on another ship, which I will say, to the film's credit, because everybody shits on it for like cheating. They're like, oh, they don't even show that there's a second ship, and he gets away on the side. They do. You see both ships earlier. It's very visible that there are two ships. You just weren't paying attention. But the problem I have with it is not the death fake out in and of itself. It's that, like with 3PO, the tension is resolved almost immediately, because we find out Chewie is alive like 2 scenes later. Like less than 5 minutes of film has passed. And I think we shouldn't have found out Chewie was okay until Rey finds out Chewie's okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Why not do it that way?
Yeah, why did we need that shot of him on the ship?
Because like I think Daisy Ridley's acting in the scene where she thinks she killed him is incredible, and it makes you very sad. And I like the idea that they've taken a criticism of the character, an unjust criticism of the character, but a criticism nonetheless, where she's like too strong and too powerful, and tried to use it in a way where like she's very powerful, but sometimes she's losing control of the power and accidentally hurting people she cares about. I think that's a decent idea.
Yeah, and we already did talk about Finn's story here, because it could have been so much better than what we got. So we won't dwell on that for too long, because we already did talk about it. But yeah, it's so easy to just be like, dude, easy win. Make him a leader of like a resistance movement within the First Order or something similar. It's so easy. Like, I don't know why they didn't do that. My other idea, though, we already talked about Hux getting killed off. I personally, like, he deserved to die. He was a piece of shit. He sucks. But I think that they killed him off too quickly, because they could have kept Hux alive. He could have been the inside man, coordinating with Finn to organize that rebellion from the inside, or some kind of resistance from inside the First Order. Like, easy.
Or you don't make him the spy. Like, he's like so ideologically committed to the fascism of the First Order. It's odd that, and his reasoning is like, I don't need you to win, I just need Kylo Ren to lose. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's messy.
It's funny when it's revealed he's the spy. Like, people laughed in the theater.
It is funny.
And it is meant to be silly. Like, I think people thought it was meant to be like a dramatic reveal. It's like, no, they played, like you can see in the behind the scenes stuff, it's like they played it to be goofy. It was on purpose.
Yeah, so it could have been anybody else, but yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to talk about is that fucking knife. The knife. The knife, it's dumber than I remember.
Yeah, the knife sucks.
The knife is so stupid. So, to summarize, let me know if I get any of these details wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, Luke was looking for Exegol, right? He was trying to find
Lando were trying to find.
Yeah, they were trying to find a way to get to Exegol. So they tracked this guy to the desert planet Pasana. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rey, Finn, and Poe go to investigate it because that's the last place where they track this guy. They find Lando there. Surprise, surprise. They find the guy's ship that they were looking for, and then they fall into a pit underground. In this moment, too, I just want to point this out, something that always bugged me about this film, too. Finn's struggling in the sand, and he screams at Rey, "I never told you!" And then they fall beneath the sand, and they never address that again. They bring it up. They're like, what did you want to say to Rey? But he never clarifies it. And I think we can all kind of like make our own headcanon. And I think that's okay, but it frustrates me.
Yeah. Well, and what frustrates me even more is J.J. Abrams has answered what he was going to say. And just like, if you're, okay, or just like think about the construction of this scene. Finn thinks he's about to die, and he yells out to Rey, "I never told you." What do you think he would be saying?
That he loves her?
Yes, that is what you would think he would be saying, because that's what you would say in that moment, if, you know. So according to J.J. Abrams, what he was actually trying to tell her was that he's force sensitive.
Of all times to say that, you choose when you're about to die.
And that, like...
And then why don't you tell anybody after?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell anybody after?
Yeah, it's very odd. And also, it's like, in the first movie, like, Finn seemed to be like kind of crushing on Rey a little bit, but it didn't seem like she reciprocated that feeling at all. For her, it seemed very platonic. Like, neither of them ever seemed like they were getting paired off, right? Like, for Finn, it was either going to be Poe or Rose. For Rey, it was probably Kylo Ren. But yeah, it's like, it's a weird moment, and it's something that an editor should have been like, we should cut this.
Yeah, let's cut that. It'll save us some time. But anyway, they fall into the pit. They don't talk about what Finn was going to say. And then Rey heals an injured snake using the Force, which I have no problem with. I like this. I think this is good. But then when the snake leaves, they find a knife which was the message that they were looking for somehow. And they were like, this knife has seen awful things or done awful things. And there's ancient Sith writing on it, which are the coordinates for the planet that they need to go to find the Wayfinder thing to get to Exegol.
Correct.
I don't have a problem with all of that necessarily. And I do think that it creates this emotional moment for C-3PO later, which is undermined later. and I like that we meet Babu Frik. He's so wonderful. He's one of the best parts of the movie. And he has such a minor role. But my problem with it is how they use the knife later she holds it up from this area to get this perspective on the Death Star debris to figure out, oh, it's pointing here. I need to go there.
Yeah, you line it up with the top of the debris, and it points to like a specific spot.
It makes no sense. There's no sense to it, even though in the message it does say, I clocked it this time. It's like it says that the knife will point you to where it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still so ridiculous. How is that knife? The debris is gonna decay.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah. Okay. So I have thoughts on the dagger too, but I want to touch on a couple things you said in there.
Yes.
Because Rey healing the snake, I actually enjoyed. And it's one thing that I thought of when watching this trilogy was how the Force kind of expresses itself differently through different people. Like Vader, when he uses the Force, he's all about like choking people and just like basically like assaulting them in various different ways. Kylo Ren's, like he freezes a lot of things and kind of like invades people's minds. He he's very invasive and like violating in how he uses the Force. And I think the visuals of that, they don't do it much outside of The Force Awakens, but I think like when he freezes Rey, like it looks very unnatural and uncomfortable. I like that. And I think it would be cool if like the Force expresses itself through Rey in sort of like a healing way a lot of time. I think that's kind of neat. And then you get even more with like Ezra and Star Wars Rebels, where his is like a connection with nature and the animals on his home planet, right? I think that's kind of nice. And then you also touched on the emotional moment with C-3PO, which is just another thing that's undermined within the scene, like a weird decision, because like he commits to die basically to get this information for them. But you also have like a weird antagonistic relationship between this batch of characters and 3PO. Like they don't really give a shit about him at all.
They don't treat him like a friend.
They don't treat him like a friend, which is fine, but maybe they should. If you, like, I don't know. It's a weird dynamic between them and him. And then also right before he shuts off, he starts saying something like he's had an idea of something else they can do. And then, and it's like, wait, like what am I supposed to feel in that moment?
Like, oh God, did they just kill him?
Yeah, for no reason. But back to the dagger, like, I agree. I think it's really dumb. There could have been a cooler way to, like, have it guide them. Like, you point the dagger out, blade out, maybe, and, like, there's some signal that goes off if you're pointing the right direction or something. But also, this is maybe just personal preference. But I think, because the dagger is treated like this ancient Sith artifact or whatever. But based on the way it's used, it really can only have been a relevant thing for, like, 30 years. Because that's when the second Death Star fell into the thing. It had the whole sequence has like an Indiana Jones flavor, like treasure hunting vibe. But the thing they're hunting for is like younger than they are.
Yeah.
And that's just feels very goofy to me. Just lining it up with the debris, I think is really goofy because the debris would shift and all that. And also it's just like the amount of coincidence that happens for them to find it. It's like they accidentally sunk underground and it happened to be there. Just the specific thing they were looking to find also happened to accidentally sink in the same way. And also it was on the body of the Sith assassin who was also the guy who killed Rey's parents and was like flying off of Jakku and is now on Pisana, and it's just like everything feels a little bit too convenient for this to have worked out.
Convenient and confusing. Do you want to talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, I do. The Palpatine.
Palpatine's
behind all. So, yeah, the inclusion of Emperor Palpatine and everything that comes with it is like a massive drag on the movie, which sucks. Is like Ian McDiarmid is great. He's always great. I like one thing I don't have a note about, but I think everything regarding the design of the Emperor this time around is just overproduced. Might not be the high shadow. Overproduced might not be the right word, but that's how it feels. It's like he's even uglier this time. His eyes are all fucked up. His fingers are nasty. His voice has like extra sound modification going on to make him sound more evil.
It's echoey.
Yeah, it's echoey, and I'm like, look, I don't. Aside from the fact that his return was revealed in a Fortnite crossover event.
Forgot about that.
Which is very stupid. Like, I don't care about the how of him coming back, right? Like, whatever. Star Wars bullshit. You know?
Yeah.
Stupider things have happened. What bothers me is the why.
Sure.
And, like, this trilogy has its own villains. Kylo Ren and Hux. Those two characters have relationships with our main trio, established over the first two films. Focus on them. The conflict is with them. It just feels so strange to bring Palpatine into the mix right now. It's like, I know it's revealed he has a biological relationship with Rey, but emotionally, this guy has fucking nothing to do with any of the characters in this story.
Yeah.
And there are some people, I think including J.J. Abrams, who feel like Star Wars has always been this like story about the Palpatines versus the Skywalkers. And I'm like, no, it hasn't. That's not what it's about. What it's not like.
It's about a lot more than that.
It's about like
things.
Yeah, it's about like rebellion and fighting fascism, the downfall of democracy, and like Anakin and Palpatine are characters in the larger story. The relationship between the Skywalker and Palpatine families it was about those two specific dudes.
Yeah.
Like Anakin was meant to be a tool for Palpatine, and he manipulated him. It's not like a generational struggle between like warring clans.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Palpatines and Skywalkers, they're not the only thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, but they've been like integral to the plots of the first two trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand it from that sense. But I still agree it's not terrific. But like, then yeah, Palpatine's also been kind of this formidable Sith mastermind the whole time, in the prequels and in the sequels, or in the prequels and the OG, been able to manipulate people to get whatever he wants. So it's like, okay, he's a mastermind. It does make some sense, but I still don't like it.
Like Palpatine's role in the original trilogy isn't as like an evil mastermind though either. He's just
the dude.
He's just the emperor of the Empire. The enemy is the Empire, and he's just the guy.
Yeah, he's
and
just the guy who's on top.
Like the conflict is really between Luke and Vader. Essentially, at the end, it does become like a battle for Vader's soul. I guess between Luke and the Emperor. But like Luke and Emperor Palpatine were not like rivals or anything like that. So it's just it's an odd choice, and that's what like I think JJ and Terrio meant by wrapping up like the story of all 9 films, was bringing back the Emperor and having him be the ultimate villain.
Yeah.
I think ultimately a big part of why he's back is that they wanted to redeem Ben Solo.
Like, sure, how to do it.
Yeah, they didn't know how to do it without having a bigger bad from the turn against.
Yeah, and like I think that's kind of like one of the things about this trilogy, where it's like we mentioned earlier, the writers, the creators kind of like made the box smaller, the toolbox got smaller over time, and then it's just like when the 9th film came along, it's like, well shit, we want to do this, how do we do it? You know, they don't have as many creative assets.
Yeah, but I think like for me that's part of what excited me about it, because I think if I'm J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio and I want to redeem Kylo Ren, right? I recognize he's the Emperor figure now of this trilogy. He's gone from the Vader to the Emperor. The dramatic question should have been, how do you redeem the Emperor?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I don't have the answer right now, but it's like, that's something interesting. It would be totally different. But we'll come back to Palpatine again when we talk about Rey, but I do want to talk about something more somber a little bit, and that's obviously, everybody knows Carrie Fisher passed away after production ended on The Last Jedi, so she was no longer around to play Leia in the final entry, and that's obviously very sad, because like if you look at the trilogy, I think she was talking to Rian Johnson about this, it's like the first film for the original main 3, it's like the first one is very much Han's, the second one is Luke's, and then presumably Carrie Fisher was like, the third one feels like it should be me. It should be like, it was like Leia would be the original figure who is most in the spotlight in episode 9.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. And unfortunately she passed away. And I want to acknowledge that JJ and team were like put in a very difficult position here, because there's it's a very difficult decision on how to handle it properly, given that the character has been played by Carrie Fisher for most people's entire lives who will see this movie, right? So there's really no right way to do it that would result in people not being mad at you. And I watched the behind the scenes documentary, and a part of it is about the first day they do a Leia scene, and it's like they treated it with a lot of respect and gravitas.
This is the first scene that we're doing with Leia, and of course, we don't have the most important person with us. I would say we should have a moment of silence, but that's the last thing that Carrie would stand for. So instead, I would say let's have every moment be one of celebration for a woman we loved, a character we loved and admired. Thanks a lot.
I'm so happy. And she would be happy that it's her movie too.
They were trying to do right by her and her legacy.
Sure.
It just doesn't really work. On a technical level, the work is impressively seamless. But all of the scenes involving her do feel very stilted, and you can tell they were written around existing lines and that are very vague in the new context. And part of the problem is the lines they use were all from scenes in The Force Awakens that they decided could be cut. And I think that's why, like, the never underestimate a droid thing, the, like, don't tell me how you feel, tell me how you are, or something like that. I forget exactly the line, but it's like, none of the scenes feel natural.
I agree. Well, I'll always be mad about it to a certain degree. Like, I understand the limitations, and I understand that they had a lot of pressure on them, and yeah, like you're saying, you would expect her to be in this movie based on the cadence of the last few films.
Yeah.
Like, and I think like what they've done more recently with like Ahsoka, where it was like the New Republic, they need a scene that Leia would have been in, so they just brought C-3PO in, who's just like, oh, hey, I have a message from Leia, you know, and like that I think is an appropriate way to handle it. Or you could even have like, I don't know, I'm just like spitballing, but like, you know, Leia's really sick or something like that, so she's not in a lot of scenes, and then she's like, why don't you just have like her real life daughter who's in the movie just like come out and like relay messages from her.
Yeah, it's tough because that character has no relation to Princess Leia at all. The actress obviously does because she's her daughter, Billie Lourd. But yeah, I like, because that was my initial thought. I'm gonna sneeze in a second.
Whatever.
Maybe not.
Whatever.
The hell! I'm keeping this in. It would have felt weird narratively if like Lieutenant Koenigs is just talking on behalf of Leia all the time.
For sure, yeah. Like it would have been hard to do, and so I understand it. Like it's all hindsight thoughts because like I don't like that they use her in this movie, but I understand that you need her, and because like on the one hand I would have been fine if her character had passed away before the movie even started, and like it's just mentioned in the opening title crawl, and then you open with a funeral scene or something like that. Like that would have been totally fine. But at the same time, I also realize that Leia plays a very key pivotal role in this movie because like her death, her passing away, causes Kylo Ren to like kind of snap out of it. Like he's like focused on attacking Rey and stuff, and then all of a sudden his focus just breaks. Rey gets kind of the jump on him to like stab him, and then she force heals him after she realizes what she'd done and like that Leia passed away. And it's this combination of actions that I think finally brings Kylo Ren back to the light, makes him Ben Solo again. And so in that perspective, it's like, yeah, you needed Leia in this movie because she's that emotional pillar for Ben.
Yeah, but I think like. So I think there are a couple different ways they could have gone about it that might have worked, and it would have changed the movie substantially in some of them. But I think if you had Leia die to start, like beforehand, and just not have her in it at all, that's a path you could have gone down. It would have been a fucking bummer, obviously, but then maybe like you play it so Kylo Ren is like so engrossed in trying to be fully on the dark side that he just doesn't even sense it, and then in a dramatic moment, like Rey reveals the information to him, and that snaps him out of it. And then maybe he like reconnects enough to like recognize that his mom's presence isn't there anymore, or something like that. Or you have Leia just alive but off screen. You've already in The Last Jedi like transitioned leadership to Poe, so that's fine. Which is something that like this film kind of goes back on a little bit. It's like he has to relearn the lesson in a different way. Which is whatever. But and this like hurts to say, but if Leia was so key to this movie's plot, you needed her around, you should have recast. You should have done it like in a very tactful way and a respectful way. But like if the idea is to honor Carrie Fisher's legacy and see the character through to the conclusion of her story, the best way to do that would have been bring someone else on board to you know do the last stretch. And it's just the way they went about it, and I think our feelings on like using dead actors has changed, and I dislike it now more than I did back in 2019. But like it's one thing because they're using like footage that existed, and they're trying to be respectful in that way. But now it's like you got CGI Tarkin, Peter Cushing's dead. You have all these like and they're bringing people back from the dead with special effects, and it feels very gross. And I don't know if this is necessarily a precursor to that. I guess the Rogue One came out first, but yeah, it doesn't totally work, and it makes me sad to say that. But
yeah, I agree. And I mean, yeah, it would have been a completely different movie depending on what they would have changed with her.
Yeah.
And one of the last things, or one of the last negatives that I'll say, is that I think the final act is a mess. I think it's incredibly messy. Like, there's a lot going on between Palpatine shooting an insane amount of lightning into the sky.
The sound effect when that lightning goes off made me laugh in the theater. It's like.
It's fucking crazy. And then like they have this landing assault on the space cruiser that's like just kind of weird.
Oh, I love that part. I think it's like a cavalry charge on a Star Destroyer is they built a massive set for that Star Destroyer too, and they like charged horses down because like those creatures, they just like used horses and put a bunch of shit on them.
It's just there's, I don't know, I just feel like there's too much going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's at points, and just like some things that are like weird, mainly the Palpatine stuff, but like, and then it's like all these Star Destroyers have like Death Star tech on them. Fine, I guess, like it's smart from a tactical perspective, but it's fucking...
Is it? What's the tactical advantage in blowing up a fucking planet? Like, and J.J. Abrams, again, with the blowing up entire planets, what is going on?
I meant more like... Yeah, he's got... Someone needs to check on that man. But like, you know...
Because they blow up Kashimi.
Yeah, but it's just like that. Yeah, right, what is the point of blowing up these planets if you can collect taxes from them and like resources and stuff? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, how small are you willing to make your empire?
Yeah, you're an empire of rubble. But yeah, it's like, it's stupid. I think just tactically it's like, oh, you know, you can go through light speed quicker, you're more maneuverable, you're not a huge floating space station. It's like, no, it's a space cruiser. It's a little bit easier to use.
Yeah,
but it's still fucking...
Yeah, and like, I don't mind the like, it's so stupid, but like the fleet of like 1,000 Star Destroyers that were underground. Fuck it, it's stupid, but like the image of them rising out of the ground is cool.
It's cool. It's really hard to understand, but it's cool looking.
And speaking of hard to understand, before I get back to the notes here, but like, what does Palpatine want in this movie? he wants
power.
Well, he wants power forever, but he tells Kylo Ren to go kill Rey. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't really want him to kill Rey.
Yeah, 'cause
he wants Rey to get there so that he can absorb, like, go, like, become her. He wants to, like, and he's all the Sith. He's like has the spirits of all of them in him.
It's really confusing.
And then so he wants to like have her be a host for his like soul, I guess.
Yeah.
And then but then when they both show up and he realizes like, oh, I can just like suck the life out of you and restore myself. I'm gonna do that instead. And then he like cartoon pushes Kylo Ren off a cliff. And I will say, like, Palpatine's inclusion here, I know it's not for a story reason, it's for the fans. And the reason I know it's for the fans is because when he restores himself, he doesn't restore himself to the way he looked before he got electrocuted by Mace Windu. He restores himself to the way he looked in Return of the Jedi, kind of. His most iconic appearance. And also a very goofy thing is that when he restores himself, his clothes change too.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
He's wearing different robes after he gets restored.
Powerful force.
But I'm like, I just don't, like, what the fuck do you want, man? What are you doing?
It's unclear.
It's unclear, and he's in the, like, he's hovering around in his little space chair. Yeah, enough about him. But back to the ending. Like, I know when, at the end, when, like, all hope is lost, and then Lando is like, there are more of us. A sentiment I do like, when Kerry Russell's character is talking to Poe, and she's like, they win by making you think you're alone. There are more of us. I like that sentiment a lot. I think it's very important, especially in our modern political times.
Absolutely.
It's like there are more of us. And that's there's so much truth to that. It's like the right-wing authoritarian people, they win by using propaganda to isolate you and make you hate each other. But at the end of the day, we have more in common than we do with any of them, and there are more of us.
Yep.
But when Lando shows up with all the help, right, of the regular people, I know I'm supposed to feel a lot of emotion at this, right? But I don't. And I want to work through some of the reasons why I think that is. First off, this film came out in 2019, the same year Avengers Endgame came out, so like a comparison to that film's portal scene is inevitable, right? And I feel like I don't want to say they're trying to emulate that because the productions were so close in line that I'm not sure that's possible, even though they're both Disney, so maybe there was some crossover there. But the portal scene works, and this one doesn't. And I think the main two reasons why are pacing of the reveal and emotional payoff. So in terms of pacing, you know, the portal scene, it starts off with just like, you know, Sam being like, on your left, calling back to their like thing with Cap, and then one portal opens and a couple characters come through, and then more and more portals start opening one by one, and the characters all start coming through, and then it's like, so you are given time to feel the return of each of them, right? Let's rework the Rise of Skywalker scene to where maybe you hear Lando on the radio, and then we see the Falcon drop out of hyperspace.
Yeah.
And then, like, a couple ships come in behind it, and then you get the boom, 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 like a ton of them at the very end. Give it a bit of escalation, you know? So it's like there's a little bit of help, and then there's all the help. And then on the emotional context side of it, it's like with in-game scene, we know everyone who's coming back, and also we lost them in the previous film.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this big emotional cathartic moment in it. And in Rise of Skywalker, like, aside from Lando and Wedge, who, like, fine, like, great that he's back. We love that. Most general audience members don't know who the fuck that is. Everyone turning up is just a random ship. Yeah. There aren't characters on the ships.
Yeah, it's just random civilians, we assume.
Yeah, I think, like, the idea of just normal, everyday people turning up to help, that's the point. I get it. It just, the execution of the scene doesn't allow me to emotionally feel it.
Yeah.
I also think there are just too many ships in the shot. And there's nothing to compare, like, for scale, again, for any of them. So it's like a big open sky with like thousands of little CGI ships in it, and there's too much going on for any one bit of it to feel important. And like there are Easter eggs in there, like the Ghost is in there, the Razor Crest is in there.
Yeah, if you're paying really close attention, you can see some that you know, but it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I wanted to feel something and I kind of didn't.
Yeah, I get that. One of the things too that I wanted to bring up, where were the Knights of Ren for the last two movies? And then all of a sudden they show up. Did I miss something?
Yeah, they were just kind of doing their own thing.
I guess so, but it's just like now Kylo's got a fucking crew. And I think it's a kind of a good payoff when he has to fight them all at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of neat, but like I think it would have been even better if it's like, oh, they were introduced in the last two films gradually, like maybe introduced two at a time or something like that. Because at this point, I'm just like, they just are Praetorian guards, like, to me.
They basically are. They're just fodder to fight.
Yeah, they're just fodder.
And
that's it.
Yeah, and like I get that criticism. I think it's funny that they're like mentioned in Episode 7 and have no presence at all for the first two movies. But it's like, to me, those two films where they are not present, the films are doing much more interesting things.
For sure.
So I don't feel their absence all that much, but it is funny how they're like such a relatively large presence in this movie.
Yeah.
They get that like big dramatic shot looking over the desert.
What are they doing? They're standing there menacingly.
When they're walking on the Star Destroyer, the stormtroopers are like, Knights of Ren, ghouls. And in the theater, I remember everybody thought the other guy was just like cool.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like in the theater.
That's so odd.
Yeah, and whatever.
It's minor detail. I just wanted to point that out because it's always bugged me.
And like my biggest bummer in this movie, and we, talked about the inverse of it in the Last Jedi conversation, but like the retcon of Rey's lineage.
Yes.
It's a massive bummer. Her being a nobody was such a cool idea and put the character in an interesting position for episode 9. Like, you were denied the meaning you sought from heritage. You have to make it for yourself. And that's the approach Rian Johnson took for episode 9. It's like a lot of people make fun of him for the subverting expectations thing, even though the quote of that was him basically saying the opposite. Like, the point is not just to subvert expectations, but to like tell the best story you can.
Yes.
But his approach going into writing episode 8 was like, he wrote out every character and he was like, what would be the hardest thing for them to deal with? And that's how he approached each of their arcs.
Okay.
Was like, what would challenge them the most? And Rey's was not being given the meaning or reason for why she was fucking abandoned on a desert. This film, for some reason, they decide to change it to her being the granddaughter of the Emperor, whose parents hid her on Jakku to keep her out of his grasp. So my main issue is that this just gives Rey everything she wanted. It's like, guess what? You were important, and you were hidden, and your parents loved you. Oh, okay. So the thing you've been struggling with for 2 movies doesn't matter. Also, it's like, there's not as much weight behind a reveal that the grandparent is evil. Like, a lot of people have evil grandparents. It's not that significant. It's like the trope is sins of the father, not sins of the grandpa. The interesting thing about like Kylo Ren isn't that he's Vader's grandson. It's that he's the villain, but was Han and Leia's kid. Like, that is the inverse of like Luke. Like, having her have to instead having to deal with the fact that she came from nothing in this movie and finding a way to like be the symbol she needs to be while not being connected to anyone is just such a more rich direction. And like, she has no emotional relationship to Palpatine whatsoever. There's no temptation there. He died before she was born, and then there's like this thing of like her being afraid of who she is and like wanting to go it alone, and they're like, they have like the evil version of her in the Vision. It's like, this was never a character at risk of going evil. That's not been part of her character's struggle at all. So her choosing to not join the dark side for him just doesn't have any weight. Right?
Yeah, right. Like, it just all feels shoehorned in.
Yeah. Also, her parents were already good people who opposed Palpatine, which kind of steals the thunder from Rey doing it. It's just a very odd choice. It's like they sidelined their protagonist in a way. Yeah, and also the other thing that's weird is like her taking the last name Skywalker at the end. A lot of chuds have a problem with this. They hate it because they think she's not worthy of the name or some stupid shit like that. I don't like it because I don't think the name is something that needs to be treated with that much weight or something that she needs to be deserving of. You also have that line earlier where she says to Leia, like, one day I'll be like worthy of your brother's saber or something, and it's like, what's going on with all this? But I think like the Skywalker name, like that's one of those things I talk about. It's like, that's not for her, that's for us.
Yes.
That's for us as fans. The same thing with her going back to the fucking Lars homestead on Tatooine.
She has no emotional connection. She was just doing that for the fans.
Why does she even know it exists? Like, Luke didn't really care about it. He left it behind a long time ago. Leia doesn't have any real emotional attachment to Tatooine. In fact, it was probably a bit of a traumatic place for her because of what happened with Jabba's palace. Her burying the sabers there is 100% a for the fans, this is a closing of the saga thing, and it feels very dumb. I do like the callback of her sliding down the sand on the little sled.
That's nice.
That's cute. But I just imagine like the old lady at the end. One, it's a weird question when someone introduces themselves to be like, Rey who? Like, excuse me. But imagine how much more powerful it would have been if she had just responded like she did earlier in the film and just said, just Rey, but with more confidence and like self-assuredness this time. It's like, I'm just Rey, and that's enough.
Yeah, that would have been fine. I would have been so okay with that. Yeah, I agree. I think that she should have been just Rey. On the flip side, just to play devil's advocate, I think a lot of people in the world either or don't have family members or they don't like their biological family. So a lot of people choose their own families, you know, your friends and your other people in your life who are significant to you. So in a way, if you choose, like, your last name is Skywalker, all of a sudden it's like, well, it's because I chose my family. Because I chose the people that I wanted to be associated with.
Yeah, but I think, like, I like the idea of her having a found family. I just feel like the found family, it's like Finn and Poe and Rose and them. Like, I don't think taking the name is something that was necessary.
For sure.
It just, I don't know, it feels like they wanted the main characters to all be called Skywalker for some reason.
I'm gonna close out my thoughts with saying some nice things, because we talked about a lot about things that we didn't like about this movie. Ben's arc in this movie, like Kylo Ren's arc in this movie, I think I do like it. I like how he eventually shifts back to the light side, and I do like the conversation that he has with Han.
I like it a lot too.
I think that's one of the better moments of the movie. And I really appreciate how they repeat that line, you know, where he says, I know what I have to do, but I don't think I have the strength to do it. Which is the same thing that he said before he stabbed his father. And then he throws his lightsaber this time. So it's like, I think that's just a great moment.
Yeah, because, like, a lot of people are like, how's Han a Force ghost or whatever? It's like, he's not. It's like, if anything, if the Force is involved at all, it's like facilitating him reliving a memory. And it's like him playing it out the way he should have done the first time. And it's very touching. And Harrison Ford is once again good. Yeah, it's great. Adam Driver is great in this. I also really like the duel that precedes it.
I think it's a fun duel.
I think it's a very weighty duel. I like the sound design of it.
The environment's neat.
The environment's neat. I love how they, like, block each other's sabers with the Force.
I think that's fun.
And also, it's the first time Rey has fought Kylo Ren when he's, like, fully, you know, not emotionally or physically distraught. And, you know, y'all got what you wanted. She has a really hard time. She's very tired. You can see how, like, erratic her movements are. And, like, she's gonna lose until Leia does her thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great sequence. And I like Rey throughout this movie, too. I think that she, even though, you know, you retcon her lineage, I think that she is kind of still struggling with some of those identity issues and self-control, too. Like, we see that when she fake kills Chewie. And I kind of wish that they went, if you're going to go in on that, like, mention some of those things, like the self-control, maybe lean into that even more. Like, that could have been neat. And I like the general dynamic between Rey, Finn, and Poe. Like, in the past movies, like, they've all been kind of separated and it hasn't been the trio together. So I'm glad that in this one, the three finally got to go on an adventure together. And I think they vibe pretty well together, too. Like, they all kind of, have some good quippy moments throughout. It's pretty good.
I like the little touches they throw in there with the trio, like when they're on the ship and they're deciding to go to Kijimi, like Finn makes them all, like, hold hands as a little group, and you can tell it's like, you get the sense that, like, this is something he makes them do a lot when they're on missions together. And then I love the way when they're like, when Poe's getting ready to leave, he's like trying to get him, it's like he holds something, it's like Kijimi. I think that part's funny. I like, because that is something that sets this trilogy apart from the other two, is like the trios of those two trilogies spend a decent amount of the runtime together, and in this one, just kind of, I think due to circumstances like the Oscar Isaac thing in episode 7, like him not initially being part of the original plan, and then in The Last Jedi, like, Rey is just separated from them the entire time because that's where the last movie left off. Like, they just aren't together. And so this movie had the task of, you know, building a dynamic with them pretty quickly, and I think it did do a good job at that. I wish they weren't separated for, like, the entire back half. Yeah, and on the note of Kylo Ren's redemption, like, Adam Driver is such a good actor because the way he carries himself once he's been Solo again is so distinct from his movement as Kylo Ren, and his facial expressions are lighter. The way he fights is great. Like, he channels a lot of Han Solo at the end. He shoots behind the back, and then when he gets the lightsaber from Rey, like, I do like that evolution of their power too, where she passes the lightsaber and then he does a little, like,
the shrug is fun.
I will say, I don't think he should have died. If you were going to keep him evil, he should have died. If you were going to redeem him, he should have lived. I kind of like the idea of leaving him in a sort of like when Zuko decides to be good
Yeah.
in Avatar, like he still has a lot of work to do. Like he has reparations to make for people. I think that would have been a good space to leave Ben Solo, because like he gets off a little too easy, you know.
He does.
And they shouldn't have kissed. I don't like that they kissed.
Yeah, that part's a little odd. But the thing that I do love the most, Babu Freak.
Yes.
Babu Freak.
He was a tiny little puppet.
He's so cool.
They talk about how like, because he's a very detailed puppet, but he's so tiny, and they had to like work really hard to make all the like parts maneuverable and everything, because it was such a tiny little rig. But yeah, I like Babu Frick. I like the setting of Kijimi. I one thing is funny that like Rian Johnson created the force connection between the two of them so that he could have them on screen together without them being able to fight. But then in this movie, the fights are very cool, but the primary thing they do with the force connection is fight.
Yeah, they're just fighting there. That's all they do.
Yeah. And then we're just kind of going through miscellaneous stuff now, but like the exploring the derelict Death Star was kind of neat. That was an idea that was initially like concepted for episode 7 that they cut. Like a girl, I think it was Kira at that point, swimming through like the ruins of the Death Star was a visual.
I was more positive on it this time through. I still stand by my statement from earlier that I think over time the camp value will grow, and I think fans will come, sequel fans particular, will come back around to this film, but it's still got a lot of problems, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it sucks more because it's the ending.
Yeah.
And it's like it makes the trilogy not stick the landing. A trilogy I otherwise love. And I like I said, there are a lot of things in the movie that I do like, but it just, those couple things, like the Rey lineage and the Palpatine thing, the things I needed the movie not to do, and that it did, are what drag it down for me. And also Finn being so thoroughly sidelined.
Yeah.
He literally has nothing to do.
Yeah.
And Rose.
Yes, Rose.
That was it's so fucked up. And in the press tour, like J.J. Abrams like makes all these comments about how awesome Kelly Marie Tran is and how important Rose as a character is. And it's like, it's so fucked up that you said that and you treated the character the way you did.
It's like, I don't think that you believe that, sir.
Yeah, and I think he's just trying to be, I think what it was is he didn't really fucking know how to use the character, didn't want to deal with the fan backlash, but also wanted to like publicly support Kelly Marie Tran because she was a victim of such horrible like aggression by the fan base.
Yeah.
I think too this movie was kind of a shift in the approach to making Star Wars. It became too much about like trying to appease the fan base and less about telling a quality story.
Yeah.
And we've not, for the most part, gotten out of that. But I will say, for all of these movies, despite their weak points, it's like, and compare them to like the weaker Marvel movies, or like even the Marvel movies at the time, which were overall like stronger. Like these productions, in terms of like the craft and the sets and the on-location stuff, it's like real movie shit. Even The Rise of Skywalker, which I really don't like, it's like amazing stunt work, amazing costume design, set design, locations, the music pops off as always. I like everything but the writing works. It's just the writing doesn't work for me, and that's the case for all three of them. They're so well made.
Yes. Yeah, the production value's there. You can tell that they were made with love.
Yeah.
For sure.
You have any closing thoughts on the trilogy as a whole?
I think I said my piece. There's just a lot of things that I would have changed. And I think, Disney has learned some lessons, but I don't know if they have. but I mean, I think that they did learn something because some of the newer stuff is better. Like Andor.
Yeah. Andor's great.
But I mean, it's not anything like the sequels at all.
No, yeah, I'd say the sequel trilogy, it's like, it is a bit of a mixed bag, but I love the first two films so much that I'll like
Those are great.
put up with the last one. And it's, the Rise of Skywalker has fans. People really like it. That's fair. That's great. Happy for you. It doesn't work for me. I'm curious how this Rey New Jedi Order movie turns out. I hope it gets made. because they seem to announce a lot of movies that never see the light of day in Star Wars now.
We just back it up. They're like, wait, nope, we're not gonna make that movie.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going on with that, but I really hope that works because I like Rey as a character. I hope we get to see Finn and Poe as well. Like, it's weird because if The Rise of Skywalker had stuck the landing the way I wanted it to, like, I wouldn't want to see another movie about them. But because I'm not satisfied with the conclusion they got, further adventures. Let's do it.
I'd be down for like 1, maybe 2 more movies of them, of those 3 characters, and seeing what they do next.
Yeah, and so concludes our sequel trilogy rewind.
Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening and watching. Yeah, we love making these and talking about Star Wars, as you can tell. So
it feels like we've completed a 3-year project at this point, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, this is crazy. We're gonna have to figure out what we'll do next year for Star Wars Day, but won't be another 3-movie rewind.
Maybe we'll do the Star Wars holiday special.
I'm so down.
Sorry, George.
We're still going to talk about it.
All right. Yeah, well, thank you all so much for watching this. If you liked our discussion here, we do have a podcast called Play, Pause, Rewind. We have episodes every 2 weeks, usually. Yeah, we have, as of at time of recording, we've done 107 episodes. We've talked about a lot of Star Wars stuff, too. 2 of the Mandalorian seasons, Andor, Ahsoka, Visions. Acolyte, yeah. Was there another one?
I think that's it.
We didn't talk about Boba Fett.
Yeah, we don't need to.
It was fine.
But yeah, if you like Star Wars, check out that content on our podcast, Play, Pause, Rewind.
Yeah, and I'll link the sequel trilogy the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy videos in the description below if you want to check those out. Niles, where can people find you online?
On Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. What about you, Dylan? Where can people follow you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026. On YouTube at D-Day Movies. On Twitter at D-Day Movies. You can find us both here at Play, Pause, Rewind videos, as well as our podcast channel, Play, Pause, Rewind, both on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice. We've made a lot of stuff. We'll make a lot more stuff. Glad you guys enjoy watching it. Thank you all so much, and may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.